Welcome to the Wednesday, June 11th, 2025, the Brentwood Planning and Zoning Commission meeting. If you would please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, and welcome to all of our guests this evening. Next order of business is a roll call. Since Mr. Miranda is gone, I'll see if I can handle this myself. Mr. Favazza?
Here.
Mr. Ritter?
Here.
Mr. Foreman?
Here.
Ms. Schering?
Here.
Ms. Bilderbeck?
Here.
Mr. Moore?
Here.
Mr. Carlin?
Here.
Mr. Hunt?
Here.
I believe we have a quorum, and Chair Nelson is here. I believe that is a quorum. All right. Next order of business, the agenda has been circulated. Do we have any objections to approval of the agenda by acclamation? Seeing none, the agenda is approved. Next item of business is the approval of the minutes. This is from our March 12th, 2025 meeting. Thank you again to Mr. Favazza for chairing that in my absence. The minutes have been circulated. Are there any adjustments or corrections needed? Any objection to approval by acclamation? The minutes will stand approved. Next item of business, do any citizens wish to address the commission on items not on the agenda this evening? Anyone online? Seeing none, we have no old business. We will move on to the next item of new business, which is presentation of the draft residential design guidelines by H3 Studios. If you could, again, and just as a reminder, we did not have an official meeting last month, but we did have a presentation of this where we were able to ask a number of questions. So this will be the formal presentation. No problem.
Thank you all. My name is Tim Bryhan with H3 Studio. We're the city's planning consultant on the development of the residential and commercial architectural design guidelines. And tonight we're going to be presenting to you the final draft of the residential architectural design guidelines. So we have a fairly brief presentation that we'd like to run through today, just giving a quick recap of the project. And then really focusing on kind of the contents and organization of the guidelines, hitting on a few parts that have been revised since we informally met back in May, and then touching finally on recommended zoning code amendments from the guidelines as well. So the purpose of this is to develop citywide architectural design guidelines for all of residential properties in Brentwood, as well as commercial architectural design guidelines for Brentwood Boulevard, south of Strassner Drive and the West Manchester corridor. The intent of these is to provide consistent direction to the ARB in the review and approval of projects. Clearly define the review and approval process between what the ARB reviews and approves and what city staff can review and approve administratively. Provide legal backup to the review and approval decisions of ARB and the city. Clarify requirements and expectations of property owners and developers, and address persistent design review issues faced by city staff and the ARB. We've done a number of community engagement activities as part of the development of the residential design guidelines. That includes 2 meetings with our project steering committee, a series of board and commission meetings, including with the Sustainability Commission, the Planning and Zoning Commission, and the ARB. And we held 1 public open house to get review and input on the first draft of these guidelines. This is the roster of the steering committee. I won't read everyone's name, but many of you that are on that serve on both the ARB and P&Z are on this, as well as key city staff. And then again, just to sort of orient everyone in terms of what we're looking for. So the residential guidelines will again apply to all residential properties, so anything that's under residential zoning. And then the commercial design guidelines, when those are finalized, will pertain essentially to the commercial corridors that are highlighted in red on this map. Also, relevant to point out to the residential guidelines that there are a couple of subdivisions along McKnight Road, York Village, Whitehall, and the Park Ridge Addition that have indentures or deed restrictions that guide building design. Those are not the city's responsibility or legal authority to enforce, and in some cases, those deed restrictions are actually more restrictive than what is being proposed in the design guidelines, but that is something that those subdivision trustees are responsible for enforcing. Couple of just hitting on some of the key issues and opportunities identified. The fact that there is not a defined checklist for residential submittals was indicated as a deficiency. The ARB indicated that they don't feel always fully empowered to deny projects because of a lack of defined guidelines. Only residential projects are reviewed today. Commercial projects are not required to be reviewed. And then there are very limited items that the city can review administratively, and there really isn't any framework for review and approval of those. Finally, a lack of clear direction around some kind of state-of-the-art practices in terms of building design and construction. So the guidelines are intended to address those issues. So in terms of contents and organization, you all have the draft, the current draft of the guidelines. It starts out with a section on purpose and administration. Again, stating the purpose of the residential guidelines, as I've already mentioned. And then we talk about the applicability. So these would only be applicable to projects, and I apologize, there's a typo on the presentation. They'd only be applicable to projects that require a building permit. So anything that does not require a building permit would not be required to go for review or otherwise be governed by these. And then also, again, as mentioned, the subdivision indentures are not, the city has no authority to review or enforce those. Then we also lay out guidelines for projects that can be done by administrative review by the city. So that would include open-air structures without roofs, including pergolas and trellises, either freestanding or attached to a building, manufactured sunrooms and screened porches installed in the rear facade of a home, and any other additions that are not visible from the public right-of-way that are either not fully enclosed or air-conditioned, do not have a full foundation or are less than 200 square feet in area. So again, these would be items that the guidelines would specifically permit administrative review. It also sets out requirements for what has to be submitted, so full elevations of all existing building facades from which the addition would be visible, and a roof plan showing the intersection of the addition with the roof of the existing building. And then the Department of Planning and Development always reserves the right to refer any project to ARB if they don't wish to do an administrative review. Then we move into the architectural design principles, which begin to set out the overarching guidelines. So this is in turn, we talk about several topics. So starting with roof forms, that the roofs are compatible with the overall architectural style of the house. Front garages, entrances may be flush with the front facade or recessed, but should not project forward to the front facade. And the total width of all garage doors should not be more than 40% of the total width of the front facade. Window and door trims, all windows and doors should have exterior trim and wood trim used on houses with siding, brick mold on houses with brick. Porch design should be compatible with the overall design of the home, and there are guidelines about restricting fixed screen panels on front porches and finishes and materials. Eaves, all homes with gabled or hipped roofs should feature eaves. Freezes at the wall and the eave line are encouraged. And then sills and water tables are encouraged, and the general elevation of those should match that of neighboring homes to have a sense of continuity along the street. One revision that you may notice from our last meeting in May, the illustration of the model building has been updated to better represent the intent of those principles. So then we move into several sections dealing with the actual guidelines themselves. So starting with a section on new home massing and placement, with subsections on garages, dealing with side and rear access garages and front access garages separately. Then building massing, building configuration and massing, dealing with building orientation, building height, street-facing facades, homes on corner lots, primary entrances, roof forms, and floor area ratio. And I'll talk a bit more about floor area ratio at the end, so we'll put a pin in that for the moment. Then the next section deals with additions to existing homes. And again, this is broken up by addition or project type. So we have additions that are part of the side and or rear facades, and we have specific guidelines, including design and form, roof form, and materials for those. We have second story additions, so this is basically adding a partial or full second story to a one-story home, and we have guidelines for design and form of that. And then additions that are part of the street-facing facade, this is a little more prescriptive in terms of the requirements because it is impacting the street-facing facade, but again, dealing with design and form, placement, roof forms, and materials. Then we have a section dealing with a variety of architectural details and features and providing guidelines for windows, doors, porches, decks, architectural details, and utility services and mechanical equipment. And again, it's important to note that these would apply only to projects that require a building permit. So for instance, in-kind replacement of windows, in-kind replacement of doors, that is not covered under, it's not governed by these guidelines because those don't require building permits. Then the next section, materials. So we have this organized essentially by permitted materials, prohibited materials, and other materials. And this section was revised since our meeting in May based on feedback from Architectural Review Board members. So permitted materials, these would be things that would always be permitted on residential construction, would be face brick, stone masonry, either wood or fiber cement board siding, wood, fiberglass, or fiber cement shingles, asphalt shingles as a roofing material only, metal roofing, slate roofing, synthetic slate roofing, and clay tile roofing, and stucco or cement plaster traditionally applied. Prohibited materials would include concrete masonry units, so CMU block, plywood or OSB siding panels, and asphalt shingles on walls. And then the remainder of the materials, including EIFS, architectural precast panels, fiber cement panels, vinyl and aluminum siding, architectural metal panels, glass block, thin brick veneer, and any other materials that could be submitted to the ARB for review and approval are basically listed as subject to ARB approval. So those would have to be addressed and approved on a case-by-case basis. And then we also have specific guidelines for materials for buildings on corner lots, so ensuring that the two facades that face the streets are consistent. Material transitions between street-facing and side or rear facades, so if you have a brick front and siding sides, the degree to which the brick material has to return on the sides is specified. And then exemptions for material requirements, which basically applies to prefabricated structures. Site features and landscaping, this deals with retaining walls, fences, and significant trees. And that is the full contents of the guidelines. The final thing I want to talk about, and this has received some revisions since our last meeting, are recommended zoning code amendments. So adoption of the architectural design guidelines does not automatically adopt these. These will have to be done through a separate process that would include, that would be for zoning text amendments, including public hearing with the city council and all of that. But what we are recommending, and this was again based on a lot of the discussion at the last meeting, for the front yard setback requirements, the minimum front yards, we are recommending that those remain at 25 feet setback. But we're recommending the addition of the statement that says if the minimum front yard of the neighboring properties of the subject property are greater than 25 feet, so if they're set further back from the street, The minimum front yard of the subject property shall be adjusted to the average front yard of the neighboring home on either side of the subject property, averaging front yard of 2 existing homes in total, plus or minus 2 feet. So where you have streets where you may have a number of buildings that are set further back, we are therefore recommending that the zoning code incorporates a provision by where new buildings are set back to better match that line. This is, again, in order to maintain more consistency along streets in terms of the setback of the building from the street without getting into the full relational front setback that we talked about last time and were originally proposing. And then similarly, this section is no different from last time, but for driveways and off-street parking, we are recommending that for front access garages, the driveway width be increased from the width of the garage plus 24 inches to the width of the garage door plus 48 inches. That's specifically to address situations where there are retaining walls, like in a case of a basement access garage, so that people have enough room, driveways are wide enough that cars can be parked and doors can be opened. And then in addition, providing additional flexibility for side and or rear access garages, updating this to state that the driveway may be wider than the width of, may be as wide but not wider than the width of the garage door plus 8 feet as measured at the main opening width. So that would allow for essentially a parking apron to be done next to a garage door on a garage with either a side or a rear access. And then finally, floor area ratio limits. So we had a lot of discussion about this last time, and just as a reminder to everyone, a floor area ratio is when you take the total occupiable floor area of a building, and sometimes portions of a building might be accepted, like a garage or something like that, and you divide it by the total area of the lot as a means to limit building size. So you basically say, with a 0.3 FAR, the total occupiable floor area of a home can only be 30% of the total area of the lot. There was questions about should we include an FAR either in the architectural design guidelines or as a zoning update. It is our recommendation that that building sizes be limited by dimensional standards in both the zoning code and the design guidelines, because dimensional standards result in predictable building forms. And FAR limits, because it is just basically a comparative calculation, does not result in predictable building forms. You cannot govern building form through FAR. You can only govern floor area. So we are not recommending establishing an FAR limit, but if the city of Brentwood wishes to implement an FAR in the future, we believe it should be done as a zoning code text amendment and not as part of the architectural design guidelines. That way it's part of the code. It has the full force of law. Most communities that have FARs as part of, for either residential or commercial construction, have those as part of their zoning code. So again, it's not our recommendation to do an FAR, but if you were to do it, we would recommend that you do it as a zoning code text amendment. And that concludes my presentation, so I'll be happy to answer any questions you may have.
Appreciate it, and thanks to HC Studio for incorporating some of those suggestions that were made last time. Ms. Kelly, turn it over to you, and then I will at least give a little bit of context for the rest of the commission, since we did have a very robust discussion with a number of members of ARB, and just want to make sure that we give the opportunity for commissioners who weren't present last month to ask any questions. But Ms. Kelly, for you first.
Mr. Brahan had indicated, this has been a number of public discussions. So this is the final presentation. We had, because the last meeting was canceled due to a lack of quorum, we did have a workshop so all of y'all could view that information that was presented. We are looking to have this as an amendment to the comprehensive plan, so it would go on for adoption by the Board of Aldermen. So we are looking for your recommendation to have this adopted as an amendment to the comprehensive plan. We are working on the commercial side, which will be presented next, but not next month. But we will start having those public workshops as well. So.
Thank you, Ms. Kelly. Would want to open it up to the commissioners, and again, if those commissioners who had the opportunity to ask questions last month, if you would cede your time, I think I would appreciate that, because we have a full room and a full agenda this evening. But open up to anyone who has any questions on what has been proposed. That wasn't intended to cut off any discussion or questions, let me be clear, but we did have a lot of conversation. Ms. Bilderbeck.
I think everybody knows how I feel about this. I'm totally opposed to this, and I'm really even way more opposed to the commercial one. I had the opportunity to sit on the commission that was working on it and declined, though I really appreciated being invited. But the one thing that I heard today that really surprised me was that in order to get siding, you have to go to the Architectural Review Board. And I mean, the whole thing is wrought with problems. And we've spent a lot of money on this to have something that's got a lot of hoops for people to jump through to get anything done to their houses and in the city. And it's so much regulation. But setting all that aside, the thing that really shocked me was that to have vinyl siding in the city of Brentwood, you have to go to the ARB. And I just think that's just untenable and just wrong. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Ms. Bilderbeck. Any other comments from commissioners? Mr. Foreman.
Having served on the Architectural Review Board for 20-plus years, the vinyl siding, honestly, I'm surprised as well, because we've never denied vinyl siding. So I think that might be something we should look at, because it is a cost-effective, consistent material. The intent of the design guideline is never to dictate style. It's mainly massing materials and making sure that we're fitting into the context of our neighborhoods. We constantly struggle with our older neighborhoods that have single-story small residences that are not what the market wants today. But on the other hand, coming in with a 35 to 37-foot tall house immediately adjacent to a 50 or 60-year-old single-story house does require some guidance and communication to the applicants. 98% of the new houses built in the United States are picked out of a catalog. They're not custom designed by an architect for a client. They're picked out of a catalog by a builder, and then often those plans are being used over and over again. If we can communicate to the developers working in our neighborhoods what the expectations for the massing and the integration into the neighborhood is, it can guide them to pick out a better plan from the catalog. That's the intent, to make this more just a cohesive neighborhood. And, you know, the garage front houses where the garage is 20 feet from the front door, I've read studies where those houses stay on the market longer. They don't sell for as much money. They impact our street life and our engagement of our public to our streets and our neighborhoods. All of these things that are here are never meant to be draconian dictations of style. We're trying to consider the massing and integrate new homes into our neighborhoods to keep our properties turning over, our values up, and our neighborhoods engaged and lively.
Thank you, Mr. Foreman. I will note, just to make sure that I'm clarifying as well, that I didn't see that vinyl siding was a prohibited in the plan. It is something that would be considered by ARB. Am I recalling that correctly? It was not a prohibited feature?
Yes,
Okay,
that's
material,
correct.
prohibited
And
material.
again, if it's the prerogative of the commission to recommend that this be adopted, but with that amended to be included as a permitted material, personally, we would have no objection to that. We are just, these reflect the feedback that we've gotten from the steering committee on the project.
And there has been a significant amount, I think you were on the steering committee as well, Mr. Foreman. There's a significant amount of input. Any other members of the commission? If not, again, as I mentioned, we have a very busy agenda this evening, so we'll move forward. Mr. Carlin.
Very quickly, as the other member of the ARB here present tonight, I just want to, if I can, reassure both the members here and the public. I haven't been on as long as Matt, but maybe 10, 12, 15 years. I think I voted no once to a project. Our goal is not to prohibit people from doing what they want to do. That's not the plan, right? So, and we haven't, as far as I know, right? So the goal is more, as said, I mean, the word guideline is used. I've heard the word encouraged was used, right? It's not sort of, you must do this. That's not the intent. So oftentimes the things that you mentioned, especially with the building diagrams, those are things that we kind of talk about almost every single time, right? And with a similar result, right? With, again, not the goal to deny, but actually the goal to improve and to integrate, as Matt said. So I know we have a little bit busy agenda, but just to be clear, like, again, 15 years, I said no once, I think, and it was a pretty egregious situation. Our goal was to work with the applicants, to work with the neighbors, and to make it good for everybody. That's been what we've tried to do, and I think this would help. With all respect, thank you.
Great. Anyone else? I do think. Sorry, Ms. Bilderback.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. While obviously I appreciate my colleagues on the Architectural Review Board and the time that they put in, I voted against the Architectural Review Board when it was created for similar reasons. And I think having to go through an Architectural Review Board to have siding on your house is just crazy. Like as far as the level of regulatory thing that goes with that. And anytime something's a guideline, it becomes a de facto rule because everyone is going to say, oh, this is in the guidelines. And especially if we put it in our comp plan, we're obliged to review everything that comes through this commission and in the city as to whether or not one of the conditions is if it is consistent with the comprehensive plan. So I was super surprised to find out we were going to try to amend the comprehensive plan and make this a part of it. And that makes it even more of a rule and not a guideline. So though I appreciate the concepts that my fellow planning commission members who are on the Architectural Review Board and have put in all that time on it have said about that, I mean, in effect, that's what's going to happen. And before the ARB was even created, we did have a proposal that I actually helped write a long time ago that would have eliminated the snout houses, as you call them, that were extreme. But a few simple things can be done, but this is like a lot of rules and regulations. It's going to impact a lot of people and cost a lot of people money and time. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thanks, Ms. Bilderbeck. All right, so I think we have some options. Again, the recommendation is to, for a proposal, whether it's recommendation to the Board of Aldermen, and that would be the next step in this. Is there a motion? And again, we could have a motion to make a change or suggestion on permitted materials versus sometimes permitted materials if so desired. Is there a motion from any member of the commission?
I motion to approve the, where is it? As stated.
Okay. To approve the draft residential design guidelines as stated. There's a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Ms. Sharing. All right, we'll do roll call vote here. Mr. Favazza.
Yes.
Mr. Ritter.
Yes.
Mr. Foreman.
Yes.
Ms. Sharing.
Yes.
Ms. Bilderback.
No.
Mr. Moore.
Yes.
Mr. Carlin.
Yes.
Mr. Hunt.
Yes.
All right, motion carries, and that will be moving to the Board of Aldermen. And what's the date for that, Ms. Kelly? July 21st meeting. Great. Thank you very much. Appreciate your time. Appreciate all the discussion and input from members of the public and from the steering committee and the commissioners. Next item of business, this is new business case 25003. This is a text amendment to allow for educational services as a conditional use for Class C properties less than 1 acre in the MC Manchester Corridor Commercial District under Section 400.1375E2. We're also reviewing the conditional use permit for Bitcoin Ben's Crypto Club, BBCC, Technology Education Center at 8513 Manchester Road. Is the applicant or the representative here this evening? If you could please come to the podium, state your name and your address, and tell us a little bit about your application this evening, and then we'll go to staff report.
Hello, everyone, and please forgive my voice. I sound horrible. Luckily, I look good, so that helps. I'm actually Ben Simchi. I have a house here in St. Louis, and I have a house in Florida, and a place in El Salvador. I don't know which address you want.
The one most relevant for your application. Which one did you use on the application this evening? So
Well, I was asked to make the application on Mr. Senchi's behalf.
okay.
Yep.
Please, yeah, if you could come to the podium because we are
Yeah.
recording this. So
My name is Greg Garland. I made the initial application at the request of Ms. Kelly. Again, as I said, I've done so at the request of Mr. Semchi, who is our managing partner, not only for this location in St. Louis, but our previous other 4 locations in Sarasota, Florida, just outside of Nashville, Tennessee, a suburb called Brentwood. Leominster, Massachusetts. Most recently, we opened up in Dallas, and just last week in Las Vegas. So because Mr. Semchi is our managing partner and has much more experience, I'd request that the commission direct any pertinent questions to him.
Great, okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, yep. So go ahead and tell us a little bit about your application this evening, and then we'll go to staff report.
I think we screwed up when we actually filled out the application because we are not an education center. We aren't like a school or anything like that. What we are is we consult with people who are interested in actual cryptocurrencies. And we help them with, all right, oh, really? No. Should we use this exchange? Should we use an over-the-counter? And we advise people. I look at it as almost like a real estate consultant place because we have people who have a lot of questions and we have answers, but we don't really educate them on what they want, or it's.
All right, thank you, Mr. Simchi. We'll go to staff report, please, Ms. Kelly. You're welcome to sit down again. If we do have any questions, we ask you to come back to the podium, or whoever wants to answer can come back to the podium, just because, again, we're recording this, so I think
okay.
it's broadcast, so thank you.
I think I would know by now, but I don't. So as you know, we are here for a text amendment and a conditional use permit for Bitcoin Ben's Crypto Club Technology Education Center at 8513 Manchester Road. The original property was built in 1966 and is pre-existing non-conforming to the current regulations. In 2014, the site received approval of a conditional use permit for the sale of lawn and landscaping equipment and repair service of lawn and landscaping equipment that included outdoor display, and at the time included the properties at 2652 and 2652 Ruth Avenue and 2654 Ruth Avenue. At that time, it was zoned GC General Commercial. The area in 2019 was rezoned to the Manchester corridor, where Class C properties of less than 1 acre are provided as permitted uses as professional office and public parks and open spaces, pedestrians and biking trails, and properties associated with stormwater and flood mitigation. This property is also part of the floodplain overlay district. Retail stores, personal service establishments are listed as a conditional use. We had numerous back and forth with the applicant and in discussions with our attorney. We did not feel that the office use was the most appropriate, as they are offering classes and training, and as they describe themselves as a training center and almost as a social club. So therefore, we are asking to have it included, this use as as a business technology center listed as a conditional use, and therefore looking at the conditional use aspects of this property. Lee Cannon did not provide a whole study for this property, but he did indicate he did not foresee a an issue with the amount of traffic. We also have Andy Frankie of PDS, who did review the site. There are also some noted that they have blocked off the properties along Ruth Avenue with the non-conforming or not allowed wheel stops for parking spaces to block the back access, and we have requested that those be removed. And therefore, we're seeking your feedback. I think that's largely all I have. Their lease is just for the 8513. But the building has indicated that they can hold up to 25 people. So we've asked that this back access be maintained, and they provide a cross-access agreement so that people can exit that way as well.
Are there any site improvements included in this as well, or is that something Mr. Frankie can discuss?
They have not proposed any site improvements, and Mr. Frankie can address that quickly. They did not provide any additional landscaping. We are asking that some be provided. A landscape plan should be provided to address and bring the site up to standard.
We'll go, Mr. Frankie, if you want to briefly, if you could, I'd appreciate it.
My name is Andrew Frankie. I'm a landscape architect with Planning Design Studio. We're the city's on-call landscape architect. I'll make this brief. As Whitney stated, we did review the site. There was no landscape plan provided, so essentially our review noted things that didn't meet the current ordinance, and they're listed on the memo that we provided. Quickly, they included that the existing dumpster was not stored on a bricks, a solid screen wall. The existing solid fence should be power washed. That was kind of a maintenance item, a property maintenance item. From a landscape perspective, one tree needed to be provided parallel to Manchester Road in front of the building. There was no interior landscape planting areas in their existing parking lot. On the east side, the ordinance requires a 5-foot wide landscape buffer, which there was no landscape buffer. It's paved right up to the edge of the building that abuts the property. We also noted that per the ordinance, there should be adequate irrigation, and there was a dead pine tree located within the canopy of an existing elm tree that needed to be taken care of, and there was a photo attached. And again, no landscape plan was provided. Anybody have any questions?
Any questions for Mr. Frankie? All right, thank you, Mr. Frankie.
Thank you.
All right, so it sounds like there's some significant site issues. Is the building, this is a lease, if I recall correctly, has the building owner indicated any interest in making improvements, or is that something the applicant is willing to do to make improvements to get us back to standard? Please.
So he wants us to, it really doesn't have any landscaping. It really doesn't have an area for landscaping. I'm not quite sure what he's wanting us to add.
And I think, well, part of it is, again, when you're doing a conditional use permit, is to provide the plan of, hey, this is the landscaping that will be provided. So anytime you're making a change, you're putting in a new business there, a new kind of business, and it comes from Planning and Zoning Commission, we want to see that we're basically bringing that property up to our the requirements now. So that requires a landscape plan and some indication of what improvements will be made to get this back up into standard. So I think that's really what's being asked. Mr. Frankie will judge once a plan is put in front of him. He'll serve as our consultant to decide whether or not it meets the plan.
So he's in charge of where I have like trees and shit, or excuse my language. And
He's in charge of making sure that the plan that you present is within the requirements of the city code and what the standards are from our comprehensive use plan.
I really don't have a plan because I don't plan on doing anything.
Okay, all right, I understand.
I don't, is it required to have plants, or?
It's required to meet the standards of the city at the time. If you want, we'll have some questions from the commissioners here, but yes, that is normally something that this commission would want to see, is that when you're asking for a conditional use permit,
Yes.
that we would want to see that we're increasing the beautification and the, kind of the desirability of the area of the property that you're going to be
Oh,
taking use.
absolutely.
So, well, let's go to questions from the commission, if we have any for Ms. Kelly, and then we'll give us a
Okay.
second here. So, any questions from the commission? Ms. Bilderback.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm a little bit confused because we're looking at something that's for business schools, computer and management training with computer training, and then we've got, as far as adding language, and the GC district and PD have this as a conditional use, but the MC district doesn't have education, but the applicant just said they're not doing education, and they describe themselves as a consultant for Bitcoin. So are we even like putting in something in here in this amendment that's even going to allow this particular business? And I'm not sure if I think the amendment makes sense or not in the first place, but it really doesn't make sense if it doesn't match the business that's before us driving the amendment, if that makes sense.
I thank Ms. Belderback. Ms. Carter, you want to address that? 'Cause I think that you reviewed the application as well.
I did, and we also corresponded many times with the applicant because they were very vague in the very beginning as to what exactly they were doing. So when it came down to that they are educating people about the use of crypto and how to do it, and in fact, they were going to be bringing in, at one point in time, they said that they were going to be bringing in groups of people, and then they were going to have couches where people could sit around, and then they would basically talk to them about how to go about using crypto and what the best avenues were. So we thought that the closest thing to this particular use was somewhat educational because they're bringing in people who really don't understand crypto, and in this setting, teaching them how to use it and and go about purchasing things and all that kind of stuff.
Understood. And I think it's a challenge with any kind of new industry of, and I see that this is a suggestion made, a recommendation made on NAICS codes, which are industry standard, to try to classify those. So, okay. Understand the reasoning behind it. Any other questions, Ms. Bilderbeck?
So are we calling it a business school? Is that like, because what we have here in red is business schools, computer and management training with computer training. I mean, sitting down people around and talking to them and like basically teaching a class on Bitcoin isn't really computer training. Like, unless, I guess, Bitcoin, are we like kind of side saying that because Bitcoin is like done through a computer?
Yes, they've indicated that they would have online classes and training online as well as in person, and have computers set up to show people how to use it.
Okay.
The larger category that I could best fit the computer training under is the business schools and computer and management training within the NAICS, which is the National North American Industrial Classification of all industries in North America. So this is how best I could figure out where they would best fit, would be under computer training, and it would allow other business uses to come in, or business classes, say if someone wanted to open a massage school, that could also be considered as part of business training and classes, and that would be a CUP that the Planning and Zoning Commission could also review.
Okay. Do we know what other, like, have any other municipalities in the region have anything like this yet? Because we spend a lot of time looking at what other municipalities do and trying to be like here.
Yeah.
Do we know of any like in the region and how they've handled it?
I'm not aware of any.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Moore?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Can you describe the business hours and when people are showing up and when they leave? I mean, worldwide trading, I imagine you could be there all night long.
Well, our hours are usually around 10 until 8, and our people call us and say, hey, I'm actually going to swing over at about 1, and I'm wanting to move this crypto off of my phone on to a laptop, and then I want to actually launch another wallet on another laptop and then move that one. It's very hands-on, and so when we say we offer classes, it's more like we teach people what they shouldn't actually do, because we would rather them come in and let us walk them through it and say, look, this is what you want to do. This is how you can safely do it. And that's how we help people. Plus, we'll have coffee, and anyone who has ever hung out with someone who's involved in crypto, we love to just sit and talk about it. So it's a group of people who are usually not even our employees. It's the actual members hanging out, having coffee, sitting there exchanging ideas and opinions. Think of it like a social club that sell or has, and we don't sell coffee. We have coffee, and everyone hangs out and helps out everyone.
And you're just renting this space for the benefit of these people?
As
I mean, how do you make money?
We have a structure where if you join our club, it's $49.99 every month.
Understood.
Yeah.
Membership. Other questions, Mr. Moore?
No, I'm yield the floor. Thanks.
Thank you.
Okay.
Other questions from the commission? Mr. Carlin?
Well, first, just a comment. I know we're looking for a parallel, and this may not be useful, but it sounds to me a little bit, and I don't say this with any disrespect, like some of the game parlors, like the board game kind of places where people come and talk about Magic the Gathering or something.
Bingo.
Right? They have coffee and
It's odd you say Magic the Gathering. That has history with us.
So it sounds a little bit like that, and so questions of available parking, which it looks like the site has, come to mind.
Plenty.
Business hours, good question, come to mind. My question would be, and if this is my ignorance, I apologize to the commission and to the gathered folks. I don't know how this amendment would fit in with the larger plans for that corridor. I mean, there's been plans with the south side of the corridor, there's been plans with the north side, there's been developers involved. I don't know how it jives with any of that. I'd love to know more about that. And also, relative to the improvements, there was site improvements discussed. The buildings, as a result of sort of being in limbo for many years, are also in great need of repair and replacement. So I'd be very curious to hear about any plans to also improve the building relative to what's going on with that district. Thank you. Possibly a question for staff, more than yourself.
All right.
So we do have the plans and a redevelopment agreement with the developer for the Manchester corridor that is currently in litigation, so I can't really say. I did reach out to them, and they did not have an issue with this use at this location at this time. Any future concern, any future use would just, they'd have to work with the property owner on that, so.
I guess question to you then to follow the intention to improve the building, because again, many buildings in this area fall into great amounts of disrepair. Could use some help.
Yeah, the only thing we're actually doing is I think they repaired the whole roof, and we're putting in flooring. It's actually like something like this, very like traffic friendly. And other than that, we're not really going to do much to it because we don't really need to, because we like a very open area, and that's exactly what this has, is a bunch of open area. That way, everyone walks in, we can have couches and chairs, and we can slide them and move them and just hang out and have fun.
I apologize, I wasn't clear. I meant exterior.
Oh, exterior.
Yeah, exterior. Yeah, interior. I appreciate what you're planning to do, but it's also we're concerned about the neighborhood as well. So I'm thinking exterior improvements. I apologize.
Yeah, I can tell you we've had it painted. It looks so much better now. It was this ugly yellow color. I don't know if you guys saw it. It hurt my eyes when I first saw it. I was like, good Lord, I'm looking at the sun. And we changed out the, it looks 1,000 times better. And once I'm approved for this, you guys are going to love me, because I'm very charitable in every place I go. And I can have anybody walk up and talk about that, because the reason I have all of these clubs everywhere is because there's a lot of rich people that are getting more rich. The problem is there aren't a lot of us little people who have even realized what's really going on up in Washington, D.C., and what's actually going on with cryptos and blockchain and AI. It's the largest wealth transfer in human history. And nobody knows about it except the rich people. And I am one of those rich people. And I was originally an average truck driver. And I learned about cryptos and I learned about Bitcoin very early, on accident, listening to talk radio in a truck. And now I own a bunch of clubs. I own a hotel in El Salvador, and I recently bought a bank in El Salvador. You'd be surprised how easy it is to buy a bank, especially in El Salvador. So
Thank you.
okay. Well, I'll just keep going. You want to talk all night? No.
Hold on, I'm sorry, I got to get my hands on. So one of the things that I do want to note, and Mr. Stemchi, we had talked about, you know, will you have to, the proposed staff proposal, which again, the commission can adopt or can modify, but I just want to go through the number of things, and you've hopefully seen this as well, and I just want to make sure that the commission is focused on, this is on page 8 of the staff report. You know, this includes that, you know, before a building permit will be issued, there are a number of things. The wheel stops, which were already been discussed, blocking cross-access. A dumpster needs to be enclosed within a solid fence. But this is where I wanted to focus on as well. A revised landscape plan, which will include a new tree along Manchester Road per our guidelines. The fact that all dead or dying trees and plants, missing plant materials need to be replaced based on the previous landscape plan. All landscaping shall be permanently maintained in a good condition. So I just want to make sure that that is clear, that that was part of staff recommendation, and I certainly would be supportive of that. And it becomes a challenge when you're leasing a space and you're not the building owner, and some of those things may need to be done by the building owner. Again, I will point out that improvements is what we're about. I hear you on your, hey, once we're there, we're generous. This commission gets basically one opportunity to talk to you, and it's before this is approved, to say that we need to see these things up to standard, because this is our opportunity to improve the look and feel of our community. And so that's when we have that conversation to say what needs to be done and to make sure that that gets done before we make a decision on that. So I just wanted to share that. Did someone else have a point there? And I'll certainly let you respond, but just want to make sure. Yep, please, Ms. Bilderback, and then we'll answer that.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So I am the president of the board of the 353 Redevelopment Corporation, and in all the discussions that we've had since that was first created, like back in the 90s, I think it was, and through this whole development process with the 353 board process and putting out a request for proposals or qualifications and all of that, I will say that never once did we talk about we really need to get some Bitcoin crypto down in this area. What we talked about was a walkable community feel for our residents, a place where some of our older residents could move out of the starter homes, allowing young families to populate the school district, having places for recreation that tied into the Brentwood Bound, so having some entertainment, having some restaurants, having some, like I said, 55 and older, I don't think they call it senior, but some areas like that. I know, right? Like I resemble that remark. But anyway, so those are the kinds of things that we talked about and what we envisioned for the area. And we envisioned pretty much a complete transformation of the area. And that was the whole goal and reason why the 353 board was created in the beginning. So this has kind of been out there for everybody to know about. I mean, at a minimum, the kinds of things that we're talking about, what, Mr. Chairman, what you just said, those are things that we request of every single applicant that comes into the city of Brentwood. So these are real basic commercial requirements. This isn't even something that's like upgraded or nice for what we're trying to create in the MC district. I know I talked earlier about siding for residential homes. I have different opinions on different issues, but we have done a lot of hard work as the Planning Commission to be consistent with developers over the decades on commercial requirements. So you'll see that we've been very consistent with that. So what's here is really minimal. Now, whether or not the crypto and Bitcoin fits, I mean, we're not going to put like an electric data center in that area, right? So, I mean, we've got all of these things that are newer or newish that we're all relying on, like AI and all of that. Clearly, we're not going to have a data center there. But, you know, when we first started this process, there wasn't Bitcoin and cryptocurrency way back in the day. But through the process more recently, we haven't ever talked about anything like this. So I hope that helps a little.
That's why you guys need us.
Thank you, Ms. Bilderbeck. Mr. Carlin, then we'll move to public input.
Can I add one more thing?
Sure.
I have no problem adding trees or a fence or whatever. Just let me know what you want done on whatever, and
And that'll be something, and again, we'll see what the motion is, but the staff recommendation was that we have a landscaping plan that meets the requirements of the city. So that'll be something you can work with city administration on once we get to a motion and figure
Okay.
it out. So, any other commissioners? If not, are there any members of the public wishing to address the commission on this application this evening? Please. Ms. Simchi, if you want to have a seat, and we'll let the other folks. If you could, please state your name and your address.
My name is Joe Klitzing, Klitzing. I'm an architect, and the client hired me to do some drawings for him. One of the first things I looked at was, what is the zoning on this, what they're proposing to do? And I was surprised that it was put in as educational, because truthfully, they don't have any kids over 12th grade, under 12th grade, coming in to do this business. And according to code, anything teaching people over senior year in high school is a business. It is not educational. It's in the code, under section 304, business groups 304.1, and it says, educational occupancies for students above the 12th grade, and that's the use that can be, is in the B use. Now, I don't know what the B is in the zone that we're talking about. Is that a conditional use in that area? Or whether or not it's just a moot point at this point.
Sorry, what is in, what?
In the
are you-
code, the IBC, when you do classifications in business, in the B zone, or the B type, it has a statement in section 304, business groups 304.1,
Okay,
educational occupancies for students above the 12th grade. That is,
so that's under the building code, that's not the zoning code. And what we're referring to here is the zoning code, where education is not listed currently as a use within the MC district.
I guess what I'm saying is the use is the B, as opposed to,
Yeah, but the zoning doesn't depend on the use group in the building code. So in the building code, you have different use groups.
I got you.
And that depends on, or that will dictate what kind of building improvements that you have to make.
so your code is more stringent than the building
No,
code.
so our zoning code uses basically different use groups. So the use groups in the building code do not dictate zoning.
Okay. But it shouldn't have been classified as educational. Because the general code says anything over 12th grade is not educational, it is a business.
That's still under a building code, that's not zoning.
And I also say, I don't think this is a proper forum to make that determination. City attorneys provided a recommendation, and we're here to discuss the application on its merits. So that's what we're
The
here
thing
for.
that I was
Yep.
brought into, or what I noticed, was the educational issue.
Yep.
And that's where we got, in my mind, it was where we got where we're at.
Okay.
So that's all I
Appreciate it.
wanted to bring up. Thanks.
Any others members of the public wishing to address the commission? If you could state your name and address, please.
Teresa Russo, 8513 Manchester Road. We are the owners of the building, and we have, if you went by, have been improving the building. We have been doing what we were supposed to. We are going to power wash the fence. We had the lawnmower shop for many years, and we did have the site plan done, and they told us what trees that we needed to plant, and that's what we did. There is one dead, but as you said, the buildings have been empty. We want our buildings to look nice. We want to have a tenant in there.
Right.
When something's empty, yes, we do have the stops there where people can't go through because they're going back there. They're leaving a bunch of trash and they're drinking and messing up things, graffitiing the walls. So that's why the stops are there. It would be great to have Bitcoin been there and have someone there, as we consider like office, but have them there and be able to have our buildings leased and fix them up. We don't want to have our buildings look like that, but it's very hard when you have worked very hard for years and can't get someone in your building, but you're still paying that mortgage and the taxes and the insurance and the upkeep. And so, yes, please get us a tenant and we can do what you guys would like for it to be. We have talked to how you guys want to redevelop that, and we're wanting to do that. That's our plan, so I just wanted to let you know that.
Thank you, Ms. Russo. Any other members of the public? All right, seeing none. Anyone online? All right. With that, is there a motion from the commission? And I guess I will say right there, we also have the possibility of site plan review if that's something that we want to go to. And a big thing there would be to make sure that if there is site plan improvements and landscape improvements, that that's something that we can review. We also have the ability to let staff manage that, which is in the recommendation. So looking for the will of the commission.
Mr. Chairman, we're beyond additional questions at this point. If you say yes, I won't ask one.
I think we spent a lot of time on this, Mr. Carlin, but yeah.
Question for the city attorney, is it admissible in this motion to add the building hours to understand those hours? I feel like the question was well asked, and although I understand the nature of the business, I think, and I likened it to other types of businesses that I'm familiar with, I do think that the coming and going of large numbers of people would be the primary concern that I would have. So I'm curious, are hours admissible in this kind of document?
So they are seeking a conditional use permit, so the text amendment would be to set up this use as a conditional use. And then you could definitely include any conditions on the conditional use that you think would be appropriate for this use at this particular location, and hours of operation in order to control the traffic coming and going, and then the possible adverse effects, maybe, from late at night, that kind of thing. I think that would be appropriate as a condition on the conditional use permit.
So, follow-up question then, that's maybe too much to determine in this particular moment. So is that a site plan discussion we can have?
It could be, or it could be, again, that's to the will of whoever's making the motion at that point. Is there a motion, Mr. Carlin?
Still processing, sorry.
Ms. Sharing?
So just to clarify, we have two things before us. One is the text amendment
Correct.
that you need a motion on. And then the second would be whether we're approving the site plan and application or whether it is up for a subcommittee discussion.
Correct. Thank you for clarifying that. However, I guess I would say is if there is an interest in doing the cup, then is the text amendment needed? But yes, you are correct. These are two separate motions and two separate actions by the commission. And it would have to go in that order. Otherwise, we're approving something that does not have conditional use capability. I got that right. Ms. Bilderbeck.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I feel like the site plan, I feel like it needs something more. Like, I don't feel like this is enough to approve a site plan off of. I mean, I feel like the discussion that we've had on the school type aspect, that's not a school, but that's like more like a businessy school, computer training, consultancy type thing. Like, I feel like we've gotten that probably where we need it. There's still the question of like the use in that area. I mean, I'm still a little uncertain about that, but the site plan, I mean, it just doesn't seem like we're making that much of an improvement, and we don't really have a landscaping plan. I mean, we usually have landscaping plans submitted to us to look at as a commission. I mean, I know we have a landscape architect, but we always look at them and talk about them ourselves. So I just don't feel like I have enough to really vote on it. Like, I don't know if it needs to go to site plan or not, or if we need to just have more discussion about think about what other things should be included in this. The hours thing I think is really great, and the, I totally lost my train of thought there. But the other thing I was just having, when you were talking about the hours, then I started thinking about like, okay, the people are hanging around, they're drinking coffee. Are they drinking coffee at 10 o'clock at night, or are they bringing a little something, something in their thing? By the way, this is just water.
Yeah, I was
for the
going to say,
record.
wait a minute, are you? Yeah.
I'm feeling feisty tonight. But you know what I mean? Like, so I thought, because I'm thinking about a clubby atmosphere, like where you're hanging out, shooting the whatever about your crypto and how you did today and what you're going to do tomorrow. Like, I don't know. So like if we thought about like what kind of, between now, like, I don't know, this is where I was going. I don't know if we need a site plan meeting or if we need to think about what kinds of things other than like getting the basics done. Like, we need a landscape plan submitted, right? So we can look at that at the next meeting or before the next meeting and think about what other things might need to be in here to make it like a complete site plan before. So like, I don't know if we have a site plan committee meeting or it just goes to the next commission meeting, but with more information.
I will note that we did not have a regularly scheduled meeting this last month because of lack of quorum, and so I have some concern that the petitioner, that the applicant isn't getting a timely response if we continue to push it out. But I do understand those concerns. I share some of them myself. And the challenge with site plan is that it would, in fact, even though we have more discussion and it is an informal session, it would push out the vote on this. So.
And I actually can't make the next meeting.
Yeah. So. Other discussion from the commission, or is there again a motion?
I think this is a motion. Understanding the concerns of time mentioned and with respect to the applicant's time, I would recommend, I would move that we do a site plan meeting on this. There's more information to gather. I think maybe some of us are positively inclined to the notion. I just want to understand more in terms of hours and the things that were mentioned. So I would make that motion. We do a site plan review.
Okay, so there's been a move to refer this case to site plan subcommittee, which would take place in between our next regularly scheduled meetings to get additional information. Is there a second for that?
Second.
Second by Mr. Favazza. I think for a motion of that nature, a voice vote is appropriate. Do we need to do roll call on that? I don't believe so. Yeah. Now get a voice vote. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, same sign. All right, so we'll carry over to site plan subcommittee. For those who may not be as familiar with planning and zoning, what that means. I think that what you've heard very clearly is that there is still some concerns, some questions, and there's a lack of clarity from the commission on exactly what is going to be needed here. A site plan subcommittee is an informal meeting. It is a meeting of this commission, but it is not a formal one where we're sitting up here. We have the opportunity to have conversation and engage and to really understand what's being presented. More importantly, it will hopefully allow for some time to provide that landscape plan, which I think is a big thing that we've heard about, and potentially talk about the conversation around hours of operation. So those are the kinds of things. Staff will provide input on what might be useful in that. I do understand the frustration that would happen with a delay. But again, I would put forward that I would much rather have a delay than have a negative vote and no recommendation from the commission. So that's what has been recommended by this commission right now. So basically, we're looking to get some more information. That'll be at an informal meeting. We meet around a conference table, and then it would go to us. And usually, I will say the next regularly scheduled meeting of this commission, once we've had site plan review, it goes quickly. So we've done that.
I'll just add, the site plan subcommittee is normally scheduled for Wednesday, June 25th.
Anyone not able to make that they're aware of now?
I
Actually, will
am
do
on
the
a
same.
10-day business trip, yeah.
You're out. I've got it. So, all right, we're good.
Okay, yeah.
All right, thank you very much. I appreciate all the discussion this evening on that. Next up, we have case 2504. This is conditional use permit and site development plan for 7 Brew Coffee drive-through at 8828 Manchester Road. That is within the Schnucks Shopping Center. Is the applicant or their representative here this evening? If you could please give us your name and your address and tell us a little bit about your proposal.
Good evening. My name's Joe Rafferty. I live at 515 Great Oaks Meadow Drive in Wentzville. I oversee operations for our franchise group in 7 Brew. So proposal is to hopefully use the northwest corner of the Schnucks lot and put in a 7 Brew in that area. Our business, just I'll give you a real quick run through. We're the first franchise group that came from 7 Brew. 7 Brew started in Northwest Arkansas. We're the first franchisee. We started about 3.5 years ago. We have locations from all throughout Missouri, Central Arkansas, East Texas, Louisiana, Mississippi. So as of 2 weeks ago, we just opened our 54th stand. So we're moving pretty quick. Most recently, I think I just reached 9 between St. Charles and St. Louis markets. Our newest one was built in University City, so pretty close. Our business, our motto is cultivating kindness. Our goal is to be a part of the community. One of the big things we started doing recently, we do an event prior to each opening we call Caffeine for a Cause, where we partner with a local charity and raise money. So it's basically drive through, get free drinks, pay what you like. Some of the amounts we've donated before, the highest we've reached so far is $15,000 in a weekend to different groups. And then our business will hire somewhere between 60 to 70 people at each location, and we just love to be a part of the community. So happy to answer any questions you guys may have.
Did I hear that correctly, Mr. Rafferty? 60 or 70 people for one location?
Yes.
Can you tell me a little bit why so many? That seems like a lot of folks.
Busy. So speed of service is big with us. So how our operations work, sometimes it gets good or sometimes it's bad, depending on how you look at it. But it's similar to what you see in Chick-fil-A, where they have texters outside. So we have people taking orders. You don't have a speaker box. There's no tons of noise coming through. We have 2 lanes open. So there's different positions throughout the stand. So say on a busy day, you may have 4 people outside taking orders, 2 people running drinks back and forth to cars. You have people in the stand working. We just want to make sure customers have their best experience ever. So our average ticket times when we get up and running, everybody's trained up, is somewhere below 4 minutes and 15 seconds to 4 minutes. That comes from when we take your order to when you drive away. So we're extremely well staffed to try and take care of all that. So
I appreciate it. We'll go with staff report, please, Ms. Kelly, and we'll go to some questions.
Yes, he has the materials board, if you would grab it to pass around.
absolutely.
Okay.
Start over there, yeah. We like some.
So as he's indicated, this is for a conditional use permit and site development plan for 7 Brew Coffee at the northwest corner within the parking lot at 8828 Manchester Road, which is the Schnucks Shopping Center. The original development was in 1986 and includes the 51,800 square feet, sorry I said that wrong, of the Schnucks grocery store and 6 additional tenants in the existing. It is pre-existing, non-conforming to our current regulations, where they have a 93% site coverage. We do see this as a redevelopment of the site. So otherwise, it would be an accessory structure, which accessory structures are supposed to be behind the main building. So as we are seeing this as a redevelopment of that entire site, we are asking that additional landscape be provided throughout the entire parking lot to bring it into compliance with our current regulations. so that you see here. So that is part of the review that we've recommended. There, it is a coffee kiosk stand. The signs, they did not provide specifics on the signs, so that would either require that they comply with the current regulations or come back for a comprehensive sign plan. They have 2 drive-through lanes. Lee Clanton did a thorough review of the site and the parking and traffic impacts, and he is here to present his request or his review. And Andy Frankie is also here with PDS to provide a review of the landscaping.
I think we'll want to hear about both of those.
Yes. The area, as part of the comprehensive plan, it is within the Manchester Road sub-area, while outside of the MC district. This part of the comprehensive plan does talk about Manchester Road in general. As you know, when we did a text amendment recently to remove some uses, it does talk about to create a sense of place and create a more walkable environment and to limit the amount of auto-oriented uses, which this would obviously be part of. So that would be something that the Planning and Zoning Commission should discuss. If this furthers that goal or objective, or is sufficient for this area. Again, this is not part of the MC district, but we always look at the standards for which that are in the MC district for any architectural design. I do believe they've tried to address some of the issues in that their uniform design has a Nichiha concrete panel that's a brick style that's intended to match the existing structure, shopping center, to help blend it in. They are short on parking, but I will let Lee address those. So if you want to move to our consultant's review, that would be great.
Mr. Cannon. You know what I'm going to ask?
An address?
No, I'm not going to ask that, but you're welcome to provide that. I know your name and address, but yes.
For the record, my name's Lee Cannon. I'm a professional engineer, state of Missouri, PTOE, professional traffic operations engineer, certified nationally. I work for CBB out of our offices in 12400 Olive, Suite 430, St. Louis, Missouri. And I do want to mention, just for the record, that this traffic study, or traffic access study and parking compliance review was completed on behalf of the city. I am your on-call engineer completing this work.
Great. Thank you, Mr. Cannon. Tell us a little about it. I think that at least some of us may have some concerns about a different operation on a major thoroughfare within the city of Brentwood that may have some traffic issues, and so we'd like to understand how this is different.
Yes, it's probably worthwhile to mention that I think it was several months ago that this tenant, 7 Brew, came forward to the city, presented a plan. It didn't really meet some of the dimensional standards, like setbacks, and so they went back and they revised their plan to try to fit better with the city's requirements. So I guess, first of all, I did 2 different things, and I'll talk about them a bit compartmentalized. Did a traffic access study and then a parking code compliance. So the 7 Brew is a beverage shop. They sell coffee and other types of hot and cold drinks. As Mr. Evans, is that correct? Mr. Evans mentioned, they have a very unique kind of delivery system that seems to work well for them with electronic pads for ordering, no speaker box, 2 lanes coming around the building to reduce queues, and not just a pickup window, but more like a pickup door that they can provide the drinks into 2 separate lanes. I believe you all know where this is, located on the northwest corner of the parking lot in the existing Schnucks Brentwood Plaza. That's at the southwest corner of a very, very busy intersection in your community. Brentwood Boulevard is one of the heaviest traveled county arterial roadways in St. Louis County. Manchester Road carries good traffic too, and that's likely why they want to be here. Their business really relies on the traffic that's already there. So when we talk about how many people are going to come to Seven Brew, several, but most of those are already traveling on Brentwood Boulevard and Manchester Road, and that's exactly what they're trying to do, leverage that traffic. When you go a block down the road in any direction, this new development, you won't notice the additional traffic an eighth of a mile away, but you will notice the additional traffic where it turns in and out of the access points to the center. But no new lots being created. So this evaluation had to consider the impacts of the entire shopping center as a whole. So they're not their own separate outlot. They actually have a pretty small facility. It's a 510 square foot service building, a 280 square foot cooler, just under 800 square foot total. The patrons are served through the drive-through lanes. There's no indoor seating. So based on some ITE estimates, we would look at morning traffic on the order of 90 vehicle trips. That's 45 in, 45 out in the morning, and even fewer in the evening, about 30, maybe 15 in, 15 out. Now, CBB's done several studies, as Mr. Evans mentioned. They're coming in around the town, and we're doing studies for these in various locations, and they actually had some data for a Springfield, Missouri site that we've referenced, and they actually had a peak a number of up to 104 vehicles per hour. So we did use real-world trip information for our assessment, but then even with the higher level, the real world tenant-specific numbers, we don't expect any negative traffic impacts specifically on the roads or the entrances to the site, and no off-site improvements are warranted. Now, we did note that the existing right-in, right-out driveway, the one on Manchester between Collier and Brentwood Boulevard, doesn't meet the current MoDOT standards, and the reason that it's there is because the MoDOT standards have changed since the center was built. And, you know, from an access management guidelines, we'd suggest consideration that that be closed. Now, we acknowledge the property owner and the major tenant would probably be objecting to that, but there is Collier access. So if we leave the existing right-in, right-out driveway in place, and we have a lot more turns in and out, the frequency of conflicts is going to go up, and I could see some potential for some additional rear-end crashes in that location. It is right-in, right-out, so you're not going to have your intersecting T left turns type crashes, which tend to be more severe, but I do want to bring that to your attention. And the city may wish to request MoDOT's input as part of this process. And actually, after I wrote that sentence, the planning director indicated I should just go ahead and reach out to MoDOT as a courtesy to see if they had any input. MoDOT doesn't have jurisdiction over zoning or site plan approval, and they don't have to change the access points. But just as a courtesy, seeing, does MoDOT have any opinions on traffic? Next thing is the drive-through. Drive-throughs done poorly can create traffic backups that affect the rest of the shopping center and also can affect the public roads if they spill off the site. Without boring you with the details, a variety of calculations we did for this tenant specific based on their own data, looking at other very successful beverage businesses. We rarely see queues 20 to 22 vehicles. That's going to take 15 or more minutes, to get through, even with cycle time, quick service times. But with what they have laid out, they have enough space on the site to accommodate 22 cars before they even impact the driveway within the Schnucks Brentwood Plaza. So they have plenty of storing, for your typical, even for your heavy days. Now, if they're giving out free drinks one day and it's the grand opening and it's brand new to Brentwood, I can imagine they might create more traffic on that particular, the first week or two that they're open. But once that settles down and they go into typical, I would not expect any negative impacts from that.
Mr. Cannon, when I'm looking at the overhead on the site plan and just trying to make sure I'm understanding the circulation as well, so I do see those 22 spots that you've mentioned. It looks like from the overhead, and I don't know if we can put this up on the screen, Whitney, that you're going to come off of Manchester Road, you're going to make a right, you're immediately going to turn right into the lot, and you're going to go into the lane. It'll then go along and split into 2 lanes. And then the expectation is that you'll roll back out to the right to that drive lane and back out onto Manchester. Is that it? It's kind of a big loop there. Is there an expectation, because it does not to me look like you would be able to enter off Collier, because it looks like that's a 1 lane only.
If you come in, yes, if you come in off Collier, then you would
have to go all the way around.
Drive up the center driveway towards Manchester and then turn left.
Turn into it. Okay. Just want to make sure I was following along, so I apologize. Thank you.
Yes. And, is there a pointer of some sort that I can point, or can Whitney point to the location right where the painted median ends on the other end, the north end? North at the driveway to Manchester. So right there, okay, that's where the rear end of the 22nd car would be. Right there, almost off their side. So the 23rd car could potentially block a vehicle wishing to go into Schnucks. But it's a lot of cars waiting for this type of service, and again, it's plenty for typical and peak days. So yes.
Okay. Thank you.
Second thing I want to talk about is just the parking code. So city has a parking code. It says fast food restaurants and drink shops are effectively the same type of a use in the code. And you do have a with drive-through service but no indoor seating, which has a lower parking requirement, and effectively you're parking the employees for the most part. The straight application of the city code for this site, plus the existing Schnucks, which is a majority of that parking need, plus all the retail bays. We calculated the existing retail bays that were occupied based on their existing use, and the vacant ones just as general retail. That's 285 stalls required. The city code also considers shared parking when we do traffic studies, and the fact that the Schnucks and the 7 Brew don't peak at the same time, and the offset of when that happens. The reduced calculation was 267 stalls. When they put this facility in the northwest corner of the parking lot, they will be removing some stalls and repainting some stalls. But it's my understanding from my calculation, they will have 237 total stalls on the site. We did count existing stalls in the field just to make sure, and we were within about 4 spaces of what they showed on their site plan. But that leaves them 30 short of the shared parking calculation and 48 short of the straight city code. Just as a reminder, the city code does allow a reduction up to 20% of the straight code requirement if the city council approves with no variance, if justified by a parking study. But unfortunately, this parking study didn't justify that at this time. That number could go as low as 228 stalls. So as part of our original scope, we did not count, so this is code, right, numbers. We didn't count use. We could do that, and it may be worthwhile to do that, but the code's still the code, even if Schnucks Brentwood Plaza is not using as much parking as the code requires. So hate to go off and do that if it's not useful or not going to be considered. And then the last thing I would like to mention is that the way that the site plan is laid out, and could we have that again, Ms. Kelly? The parking for the development is generally laid out with a block in the rear in the loading zone and a block in the northeast and northwest corners. The northeast on the east side of the main drive aisle is generally used by the Schnucks Grocery patrons, and the parking on the west side is generally used by those retail bays. And as you can see here, the alignments of where the parking stalls will remain on the west side, those are generally the stalls that are going to be used. So those stalls have been reduced quite a bit in number, and then some of those stalls kind of run up all the way to the intersection of Collier and Manchester, and those would be the ones that would be supporting those retail bays. That's a private matter, but it's still worth you knowing about that those kind of get pushed in a very different place. And that is all I have for you tonight. If you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
We'll take this in chunks since we don't have to bounce back up and forth between Mr. Frankie. So any questions from the commission? Mr. Foreman, then Ms. Sharing, sorry.
So you mentioned benchmarking other facilities from Seven Brew. The impact of traffic at this site, can you help me understand that within context of the site on Chippewa?
I don't know the site on Chippewa. I'm sorry.
Okay, so they have a facility, South City, Chippewa, near Donut Drive-In,
Okay.
where, especially at the opening, but I believe I've recalled several other instances where I've driven through there early on a Saturday morning, and there are literally guys in the road directing traffic because there's so much going on. And with this only being accessed from the eastbound lanes, with the westbound lanes having to turn into Collier, the stacking, we've seen other facilities in Brentwood with much less queuing that have much greater problems, but it seems like the turning in and out is a concern, especially if there's enough traffic that I'm seeing in another South City facility, guys directing traffic.
The benefit of this particular site, in my opinion, is the fact that there are 4 ways to get in and out of this site. You can come via the signal on Brentwood. If you're over there, maybe coming up northbound, that'd probably be how I would turn into the site if I lived down to the south on Brentwood Boulevard. You can come in from the south on Collier. You can come in from Manchester and Collier, and then also the right in, right out. Eventually, you have to make your way, though, to the northeast corner of to the Seven Brew facility. I almost called it a lot. It's not a lot. But it's that distribution of traffic that's going to help that. But I do have the concern that the right in, right out may have heavier inbound and outbound traffic than the other two, and that the location of the first internal curb cut, which is the Seven Brew driveway, and the kind of the east-west motion across the north-south main aisle being so close to Manchester, that is my concern about that right-in, right-out driveway. And again, it's very convenient, but it also creates some very closely spaced conflict points. I do believe that the Seven Brew lot, the Seven Brew layout is actually very, very good, well thought out, and is about the most you could do to reduce traffic congestion, with their facility. It will be relatively well contained. But if they have, 30 visitors, and their capacity is around 80 cars, per hour per lane, that is going to create much longer queues. But most folks aren't going to wait 25 minutes on a drink because they can only go so fast.
So this one, to build on that, because it was in my head, I'm like, does this whole thing need to mirror because of that Collier up looping back around that the chairman brought up prior? And then, so I think we're going to continue to talk about that, but bridging between our two consultants, we're losing 7 or 8 parking spaces to landscaping. I'm assuming that's to bring that into conformance with our ordinances, correct?
Those are competing ordinances, right? Because we have a space and they have a building and they need some length on their site to create the queuing lanes. The mirrored example could help. Again, I try not to redesign you feel free, to redesign their sites. As your purview, sir, I don't mean to make
It's
it.
all good.
But, the flow of the site would be northbound, inbound from the south, around, and then out. So it would work with the one-way flow. The thing would be that they may not care for is it would push their building away from the street, which is their visibility. I don't know why they laid it out this way, but I'm guessing they wouldn't like to have the building, 200 feet south.
If it was an east-west mirror, but off the top of my head, not going to make a call like that. And they've had way more time to study it than I have, so.
Ms. Sharon.
Mr. Cannon, I had a quick question. Across the street, across Collier is a daycare center, a child care center, and I was just curious if there's any concerns that have been brought up, because sometimes the traffic in and out of that center, I'm just wondering if the hours of drop-off are going to coincide with the busiest hours of 7 Brew, because people pull out of that daycare center onto Collier, and it's a really short distance to get onto Manchester. It sometimes gets very congested as it stands now. Was that at all considered in the traffic study?
I was out in the area in the morning peak hour, and I didn't notice. I did notice that the center was there, and it could be the fact that maybe it's a little lighter traffic in the summertime. Most folks that have their kids in daycare still go to work, in the summertime. But I didn't notice a lot of congestion on Collier when I was out there. And I was assuming that maybe if there was some congestion in the parking lot, I don't know if some parents may park on Collier and run in. I could see that, as a potential negative. But there's no parking on one side of the street marked. I believe that's the east side already. But I didn't see any activities spilling onto Collier when I was there.
Okay,
And
yeah.
like a school would be expected, the school starts at 8. So you've got parents coming in from 7:30 to 8:05, 8:10, right? With the daycare, it's more of you can drop them off. It's more of it's less concentrated for daycare type facilities than schools.
Yeah, all right, thank you.
I think that's a good point, though. I was just looking to see if they were open in the summer, and I can't see any data, but I assume notifications went out? Yes. All right. Anyone over? Ms. Bilderbeck?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So what I'm trying to, and I think that I'm understanding it correctly, Mr. Cannon, and if I'm not, you can re-educate me. So when they queue up and you showed us the spot that our planning director pointed to on the plan where you get the 20-second car, and then you've got the 2 drive-through lanes that are going to be coming out after they've queued up, they've gone around the building, they're going to be coming out and they're going to be facing the north. And then they're going to turn right into that middle drive lane, and they're going to want to turn left. So you're going to have them in a short distance cutting across that lane, and then you're going to have people that are going to be coming around Collier coming up by the UPS store down the middle lane and wanting to make a left there. So you're gonna have the people coming down the middle lane making a left in, and the people coming out of the drive-through making a left out, while these people are queued here potentially.
And people coming off Manchester that were going 35 or 40 miles an hour slowed
come
down
into
and made a right
Schnucks.
turn. So
Right, and I'm concerned about that.
that's one of the reasons that I suggested we have MoDOT comment on it and suggested consideration of that driveway closure, or possibly a reconfiguration of the site that may take away those conflict points in close proximity.
I can understand why, not just for the business, this coffee shop's business of wanting to be closer, but I could understand where the current folks that are tenants at Schnucks would want it to be further away from their building so they have upfront parking for their stores. So that in theory, the last place that people are going to park in a parking lot is going to be the furthest away from the big building. So those two things naturally compete with each other. So, I mean, I don't know if it's realistic because of the other tenants to like try to have it moved like further towards Schnucks. And I'm not even sure that that would solve the problem. I mean, we always like to drive people to traffic lights. That's been something that we've done or tried to do as much as we possibly can, or make it so that people could, you know, like we did it at Walgreens, and the rec center and all those buildings there. You know, one of them's like a bank. It used to be something else. But we set that up so people would go in and out to the lights more often than not. So, I mean, but I can understand, Schnucks probably would really hate to lose that. But I mean, it seems to be like the safest choice. But I don't know what the right answer is, but I see a definite concern with it.
I did leave out the context, possibly. That, you know, I've been working with the city for many years, and when MoDOT did their MoDOT Route 100 improvements, the city took that as an opportunity to piggyback on the project and get some amenities put into the project with landscaping and new sidewalks. Not sure who paid for or how it became about, but we added the shared use path along the south side, which was a great addition to the plan. And the city asked CBB to look at, you know, kind of safety and access management along the corridor, and we gave a lot of recommendations. But because there were existing businesses in these properties, MoDOT was unwilling to really hold anybody's feet to the fire to take any access away, consolidate access, require cross access. And we said at that time, well, you know, we can look at these issues as projects come forward, and it'll be one by one. The next time we have an opportunity, we'll see what we can do to make access better. So that's one of the things, one of the reasons that I'm bringing that issue up is there's a proposal in front of you to make a major change at this shopping center with non-compliant code parking, which might actually be enough parking for the business. But then can we take this opportunity, or should we take this opportunity to make access improvements to improve safety and traffic flow along Manchester Road?
And I think didn't we just have that conversation? And I've got at least one or two more things to ask or say about this too. But didn't we just have a conversation like that? Was it the Kitchen Conservatory, Whitney?
That was prior to me.
Okay.
I came in when they just wanted to do a change to the building, so we did not get into the site review at that time.
You guys remember? Does anyone remember? I remember there being something about that, like, because we were talking about the entrances and we were talking about the improvements. I mean, so like what you're saying resonates with me as a goal that we've talked about in the past. And when we did the Manchester
Swim school?
corridor.
We
Yeah.
did the Foss swim
Yes,
school?
yes,
Same conversation.
yes.
Well, similar conversation.
Yes, exactly. So I think that's something to be talked about more. I am, you know, I'm not so sure, like, if, I mean, 22 was great stacking. I do love the business model as far as like how they're handling for traffic wise. the drive lanes and the similarity to one of the big chicken restaurants that is known for handling their traffic really well. So I'm a little less concerned about having traffic, backed up onto Manchester, but I'm just thinking about if you have someone coming east on Manchester and they've got to slow down from, let's face it, people are driving more like 40, 45 miles an hour. So they slow down and make that turn they're going to still be going pretty fast to then make an immediate right while the other people are coming left and to stay in their lane. I think it's going to be really tricksy.
Especially if you have people turning right to try to get into the left lane,
Exactly.
to turn left north on Brentwood, which is the direction that a lot of morning traffic's going to be. I think that's going to get backed up, so there's some
Right.
concerns there.
And if Collier wasn't there, I don't think I could make that recommendation. And if the Brentwood intersection wasn't signalized, so there's other opportunities to get in my opinion, safely, but almost as convenient. The word convenient can sometimes be a misnomer, so it's really close, but is it convenient if it's not safe?
Right, and I think that's really important, and I think there's a lot more things to say about this, but the last thing I want to say just really quick is, for the record, this was not our city traffic engineer at the time that we had the one very busy coffee location that backs up onto the road.
Oh, can
Good
I
to know.
elaborate on that? And the fact that there was no traffic study done for that site by anyone?
And there will be now. Mr. Moore.
Perfect segue. It occurs to me that if peak business hours are 7:15, the majority of the traffic is coming north on Brentwood. And a lot of that is probably headed to the unspeakable coffee facility that's up the road. And with that said, the signalized turn into the Schnucks parking lot might take some demand off of both. I'm just thinking that traffic pattern might be better than we think.
Good point. Mr. Carlin.
So a couple thoughts and question. I'm surprised, honestly, to hear not nearly as much about the left turn off of Manchester onto Collier than I would have expected to hear, because honestly, Brentwood is a small town. Pretty much everybody here has had this experience over and over again. I am a chief offender, right? If I don't want to wait for the light at Brentwood, I go through and I turn left onto Collier, and there's no real way to do that, right? There's nowhere to wait. You're kind of halfway in a lane, half out of a lane. It's pretty dangerous, and I'm ashamed to admit that I do it, right? So if you imagine you're heading west on Manchester, you're not going to see this thing in time to make the decision to turn on Brentwood to get in here. You're not going to see that in time, right? So you're going to see it, and now you see it. My last chance to get there is this thing I'm talking about, right? Well, that's a disaster waiting to happen, right? Like, even minus the children, there'll be 20 cars in a row. I'm not just thinking unnamed coffee, unnamed chicken. I'm thinking fish fry. There's some significant trouble with that kind of backup. And again, the business model is fantastic, all respect, but this seems very much like a solution in search of a problem. I don't see how this makes any sense on this site. That parking lot is usually pretty full. If we need additional landscaping, which we haven't even gotten to yet, that's going to make it a more beautiful site, which we want for our businesses, but a way more compact one. The businesses that are adjacent to Schnucks are half the time vacant. This is not going to help that. So I just don't see the need. I think this is the wrong place for this establishment, pretty clearly in my mind. So I think I just don't see it making any sense for those reasons and others. So,
Thank you, Mr. Carlin. Mr. Hunt, did you have some?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I first want to say that I think it's probably not realistic to try to look at that right in, right out and any changes to it, because the grocer would probably have a pretty serious issue with their main access drive being messed with, and therefore the landlord would too. My question was, did your parking account for the fact that it sounds like there's going to be 10 plus employees on site at any given time?
Pardon me while I look at a piece of information so I can give you the right answer. It's my understanding that the required parking for this unit, the 7 brew, is 11 stalls. So yes, it's in at 11 stalls for 7 brew.
Okay. And then, did you say there would not be significant overlap between the grocer and this use as far as traffic, or as far as traffic impact?
So just looking at the code calculated numbers, the grocer is about 82% of the total parking requirement, and everybody else combined is the other 18%. So whenever the grocer peaks, and they're peaking probably around the lunchtime frame when people go in and get grab-and-go items, lower receipt dollars, lower duration of stay, or in the evenings and on the weekends when you go in and you buy your $150 worth of groceries, for the weekly grocery trip. That's, sorry, I haven't been to the grocery store in a while. Maybe that is the in and out at lunchtime. But so.
I'm thinking about the 9 a.m. on Saturday morning.
Right. So generally, that's not going to be the peak for the grocery store. They're probably peaking a little closer towards 11 to 1. And, the brunt of at least the coffee drinks has slowed down a bit. Now, they're still selling, drinks at lunchtime and evening hours. But their peaks are different. According to our data, 6 p.m. for the grocery store, on a typical weekday versus, 8, 9 a.m. for the 7 brew.
Sorry, one more. So you still have to park all the inline next to the grocery, right? So those stalls is there any realistic way they could be flipped so they slant the other way for those people coming in off Collier?
Well, not with this plan, because those stalls would need to flow southbound with the drive-through flow. They can't go the opposite direction on the wrong side. So there is a way that could be reconfigured to do something like that. So just so you all are aware, the convenience of the stalls available to any user was not part of my work. And there's no assignment of this parking is associated with this business beyond the fact that it's reasonable and proximate, right? So the parking code is for the site as a whole, and I'm even counting stalls that are marked on the site in the loading dock. Now, they can be used to make sure if it gets heavy, they put the employees back there, right? But those count also. So yes, it may be less inconvenient for those people trying to park. I don't know where they will park, but from the code perspective, it's one parking area and one shopping center.
Mr. Ritter, I think you had a question, and we do want to allow time for Mr. Frankie, so we'll get moving quickly, please.
Do you know what the cycle time is for the light on the Brentwood?
Well, I don't know either, but we can find that out. At the Schnucks or at Brentwood and
You're
Manchester.
looking at turning out cars every 4 minutes roughly. I'm just curious, the stacking and queuing, I guess, in the parking lot in front of Schnucks and the effect on that, I guess.
That's controlled by the county. If I had to guess, during the peak hours, that cycle is running somewhere around 2 minutes, 120 seconds to 140 seconds.
That light is a long, I think it's a long queue on that light, I believe, but that's why I've waited it before and it seems lengthy.
The beauty of the signal is that eventually it's going to turn green.
On the east side. Yeah.
That's a long light. Yeah.
So a short metric. We have had recent discussions with the chicken restaurant. We know they move one car through their drive-through every 11 seconds. What's that metric here?
It's about 45 seconds, which is an amazingly quick, and okay, so 45 seconds. That's when, as the vehicles pull up to the stop bar and then they're given their drink order. I believe you heard, when you heard Mr. Evans mention something like 4 minutes, that's typical from arrival when you come to the back of the line to when you leave the front of the line. So those metrics are a little different. But with respect to what you asked, I think the chicken restaurant's around 15 seconds, which is mind-blowing fast. McDonald's 20 years ago was at 45 seconds, which was at the time mind-blowing fast. These folks are at 45 seconds, according to the data that we've gotten from active stores, which is quick, very quick.
All right, thank you, Mr. Cannon. Mr. Frankie, can we get quickly here? I think that we will have some conversations, a lot of it around traffic flow, but definitely see some improvements made and some greening up of what is now a lot of asphalt. So tell us what we have.
Good evening. Again, my name is Andrew Frankie. I'm a landscape architect for the city of Brentwood from Planning Design Studio. We typically, when we do a review like this, we look at 3 categories: ordinance, kind of general site plan, and then landscape plan. From an ordinance perspective, and we summarize this in our memo, street trees needed to be provided around the entire perimeter of the lot, and they're generally pretty good there. On the Collier side, there's one ash tree that needs to be removed and replaced, and then one additional tree is needed there. Also along Collier, 2 parking spaces need to be removed and replaced with a landscape island, so that's kind of it's in conflict with the fact that we're taking they need parking. From a general site plan standpoint, we were a little bit confused about the 2 parking spaces that are right into the facility, and if those were ADA spots. They weren't marked as such. They seemed like they might be. We just didn't know. So that might be something that the petitioner could clarify, because we said if they are ADA, we need curbs and kind of circulation routes through there. Also, from a general site plan standpoint, on the second page of our memo, we recommended that the entire parking lot east of the proposed development be brought up to compliance with regard to the landscape islands and everything, because this is not a subdivided parcel. When we looked at the landscape plan specifically, and these are marked up on the attachment, and you'll notice on the attachment, we did that attachment and markup, and then the site plan was revised slightly, which changed the building configuration. So you will see this site plan that we're looking at right now does not reflect the most current one, because the second building, the smaller building, is actually where Whitney is pointing to on the screen. It just was kind of a matter of logistics from our standpoint. When we looked at the landscape plan, all the striped areas in the parking lot should be converted to landscape islands and planted according to the ordinance. We wanted also to provide shrubs along the 2 parking spaces in the main building island. This is one of the comments that really doesn't apply anymore because the site plan changed and that building slid back there. There are 2 Norway maples on Manchester Road that are in poor condition. We photographed those. Those should be replaced as part of this project. And there's 3 existing landscape islands on the south end of the project, right against kind of the strip retail, not the actual grocery store from Schnucks, that should be planted with trees and shrubs to meet also the requirements. Also, all the green areas on the landscape plan, while they're green, we just wanted to see a label that told us that was going to be turf or something there as well. With regard to this revised site plan, that's not specifically showing, the petitioner might want to consider some curb stops, because they might bump into that actual new building there as well. And as part of that, where the building currently is shown, which slides back, there's a lot of pavement against that building that could be removed to provide landscape as well. Again, the entire goal here is let's bring it up to code, let's make it look good, landscape it, and kind of make this thing better than it is. So that was our review. Any questions?
Ms. Kelly?
I apologize. I just want to add that in discussion with both our consultants, Lee and Andy, we've all discussed, the recommendation is that this should be landscaped to prevent either additional conflict from cars just jumping out. So if this portion is landscaped, we felt that this portion also should be landscaped as well as throughout the center for consistency in the design. Yeah.
Thank you, Ms. Kelly. Any questions for Mr. Frankie? I appreciate that. I think, I'm sorry, Mr. Carlin?
Just really quickly, do the landscape areas shown then take away from the parking numbers that
Yes.
we were? Okay,
Yes, they
so
do.
there's significantly less potentially even than before.
Exactly. Yeah, that's why Lee said they're kind of conflicting requirements.
Thank you.
Take away, but those were included in Mr. Cannon's numbers, I believe. Yes, okay. The landscape additions that are on this plan were included, were
they're
not included in your
No.
numbers? Got you.
So they go even lower.
Thank you. I misunderstood that. All right, appreciate it. Thank you, Mr. Frankie. Any members of the public willing or wishing to address the commission on this application? Was it Mr. Rafferty or Mr. Evans? My apologies.
Mr. Rafferty.
Okay, that's what I thought.
Ryan Evans is the guy who does all that.
That's what I thought. If I was like, I couldn't have possibly gotten it that wrong, but maybe I could have.
nailed
Just
it.
one quick thing on this, because I think we'll get the Willow Commission here in a second. I assume that you've looked at various layouts. We've heard that, and you're trying to make sure that you can deliver this. Was this the only location on the overall lot itself, however, right? Given that entirety of the parking lot, understanding that the grocer may want to have it, you know, they want it further away from them, but is that the only area that you looked at when placing this site?
Honestly, I'm not 100% sure, but I would believe this is probably what makes the most sense for us.
Understood. I just wanted to, you know, as we try to ideate a little bit and think of, is there another solution? I'm just thinking about with those some traffic flow. All right. To the commission, Ms. Bilderback, please. Thank you for that. Appreciate
Thank you,
it.
Mr. Chairman. And what the landscape architect, I mean, you all know this, but what the landscape architect is talking about for the rest of the site, I mean, that's something that we require of other developers. I mean, so we're really between a rock and a hard place with the parking spaces and the landscaping for sure. But the need for parking doesn't mitigate the need for landscaping, and impervious surface is a thing and all that kind of stuff. But I have a question, maybe kind of for Mr. Cannon. What I'm interested in is what can he do to give us more information with all of the concerns that we've expressed about the conflicts at the right in, right out, the left's going this way, the left's going that way, the other concerns reflected about Collier, what the time is, like there were some questions about the light. What kind of other information as far as a traffic impact study or something that he could do further than what he's already done could answer and address those? And then one of the things that Mr. Cannon had said, like relative to the shared parking thing and going down to the 228, which we can't do, if there is like some sort of a mechanism to look at that, but then of course we need to recalculate all this, taking into consideration the landscaping.
Yeah.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
And that's a fair point is, I guess I think what I'm hearing is some disquiet from the commission, some concern, and then is this something that we think we could get more information on either at our next scheduled meeting or at site plan subcommittee, which is getting full, but that's all right. We haven't had one in a while. That can help us make a more informed decision. I think that's the question, Mr. Cannon, or to staff as well. You know, is there a way that we can get to a solution that may be I guess I would say doable, but it would be what other information can be provided. And I know you offered one, which was an actual use study.
Yes, that's definitely something we could do. It's worthwhile to mention that grocery stores typically peak, their absolute peak, you know, the week before Thanksgiving and the week before Christmas, and that's a long way away from now. And quite honestly, we don't design for those anyway, but I could figure out, you know, is there a summertime day that we could get a high parking level and go count that and tell you what that is. In the morning, I was just there at the site, and I noticed it looked like the whole site was a little under half full. That was just an observation when these folks do their highest things. So it's really going to be the grocery store. It's 82% of the total code number. So whatever the grocery store is using, that's kind of what the utility number is, and I can go do that. We'd love to hear back from MoDOT. Maybe Ms. Kelly and I can get their reply back, whether they have no concern or a specific concern before site plan review. This site is, I think that there's a workable plan here from traffic and queuing, which is typically the thing. I think it probably functions well, and that the Schnucks people know their business well enough to where they don't want to not have enough parking for their patrons and chase patrons away. So with parking, I tend to believe the tenant and the landowner that they are comfortable with what they have left. The layout is a little bit tougher because there's the competing interests of parking and landscaping. I think the landscaping is important as well. It may not be something, though, that we can work out in site plan review if there's some potential alternative layouts, because the people that are going to come will need to draw those and check the things. The side yard setback was one of the reasons that that their designers came up with this plan. How far do we have to be away from the right-of-way on Collier?
Yeah, when parking is in front, you have to be 50 feet back, otherwise it's 25 feet back, which is, they've removed the parking along Manchester. And they are maintaining, being slow. They removed the parking right along Manchester in front of their space in order to meet the 25-foot setback, and maintaining the angled parking along Collier, but then have the building 50 feet back.
Understood.
So I don't know how appropriate it would be for maybe the city staff and myself to work with their team to see if there's alternative layout, because we've got a Rubik's Cube here. So if we fix X, then we might break Y, and so we're not going to be able to do that without the designer's input. But there may be a better solution.
Mr. Ritter, I think you had a question, and then I'll make a comment and we can move forward, I think.
One other question I had, I guess, for the existing tenants in the end back part of this lot here, what is their ADA requirements? And I don't see any spots for those tenants.
There's 279 regular stalls and 10 handicap stalls on the site.
Is there a proximity to the business that they got to be? I mean, I can't imagine the ADA is going to be in the front, the farthest parking spot, I guess.
That would probably be a question best answered by the architect for the project, because again, the project is the shopping center as a whole from a code compliance. So that would probably be best given to them. But the ADA accessibility guidelines generally say, yeah, you should spread them out so that the people that need them can be close to places they need to go, which is exactly what you asked.
So I think that what I'm hearing is that we will not get to a consensus this evening. So we have a couple options, and Mr. Rafferty, look for some guidance from you. Actually, first from Mr. Kenneth, what do we think we can get done by our site plan subcommittee date, which was again the 25th, am I remembering that correctly? By the 25th versus our July meeting, which would be a month from now.
Yeah, July 9th.
9th, so about approximately a month from now, so that we could move this along in a timely manner, but also not waste anyone's time if we don't have anything back, and we would rather just potentially go to table this until our next regularly scheduled meeting.
I can get a physical field count of parking scheduled in the next 2 weeks and have numbers for you. I probably want to count maybe 2 or 3 different days, so that you don't have just a single count date. I am also can be available. I don't have any vacation time coming up, so we can find a time, as long as there are people can find a time if they are amenable to maybe having a work session to look through some potential tweaks to their plan.
Sorry, Ms. Kelly, yep.
I'm sorry. I would also encourage the applicant to, for the site plan subcommittee to confirm the ability to provide landscaping throughout the center. I think that was a question that was raised that they have not provided a full answer on at this time. So we would need that, and if so, provide a landscape plan that they can do if that doesn't meet with what we're recommending here tonight.
Mr. Rafferty, if you could, and you could speak into the podium, please. I guess then the question is, what is your preference? We'll take that into consideration as well. Do we want to try to meet in a couple weeks for an informal meeting? It would still require action at the next formal meeting, or do we just want to try to do everything at the next formal meeting, which would be July 9th?
Whatever works for you guys. So I would say from our standpoint, I kind of mentioned this early on, but we have 54 open. We probably have 50 more in the works right now. So there's different, things we move around, we tweak. Like, we want to work with you guys. We want to be a good business, in Brentwood. So there's whatever, you guys will know that better than I will, honestly, and I would take your advice on what you think is the best bet.
I think that in the past, we have, please, yep. If you, yep, please come in. If you could state your name.
My name is Brandon Furness. I represent the property owner. I know there's been some questions thrown around and the property owner's been thrown around, but, and I've talked with Schnucks on this. We're willing to work, and they're aware of the parking issues, so they're willing to work with us on the landscaping additions. Like we said, we want to be good partners with you all too, so we'll work with you all there. And then we have considered the, traffic. We wouldn't have gotten this far without considering those. And, Schnucks is ecstatic about the possibility as well. So, yeah.
We appreciate your flexibility and cooperation. I think in this case, and it sounds like we probably want to refer this, if there is a motion from the commission, to site plan subcommittee. If we do not have the information we need that by that date, we always can cancel that, or at least cancel that portion of it, since it's going to show up on our calendar, our agenda as well. So, Ms. Bilderbeck.
Mr. Chairman, I'll make the motion that we send this to site plan. I wish I could personally be there. I'm going to be on a business trip. And I just want to add a comment on that. I love this plan. I love that everybody wants to get together and figure it out. I think Mr. Cannon's additional information would be great. I love that you guys are willing to get together and talk about ideas as far as site design. The Rubik's Cube was a perfect description for that as well, and that the site owner is willing to do what it needs to do, just like all the other developers do with the landscaping and all that. I think is fantastic. So I'm sorry I'm going to miss it, but I moved to go to site plan.
We have a motion, a lengthy motion. We have a motion. We have a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. We will carry this over to Site Plan Subcommittee on June 25th for additional information. So thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Really appreciate it.
All right, we are moving on. That's always helpful. That's what we're, moving on, we have case 25005. This is conditional use permit and site development plan for a Good Clean Dog grooming with drive-up services at 1234 Hanley Industrial Court. Is the applicant or the representative here this evening? If you could, please state your name, your address, and tell us a little bit about your proposal this evening.
Absolutely. My name is Jen Stewart. The address is 1234 Hanley Industrial Court. I actually do have a deck prepared that I think would have some helpful visuals, if that's possible. Appreciate it. Okay, so my name's Jen Stewart. I'm the general manager of Good Clean Dog. We are a new industry disrupting concept in the dog grooming world. So our intention is to bring a extremely low friction customer experience, an appealing groomer vocation, and extensive operational improvements to the industry. I'm going to move through this pretty quick. I know it's been lengthy for everybody. Our leadership team is here tonight. You don't care who we are currently, but we'd love to tell you more if you have questions. This gives you a quick idea. I do want to touch on, we did not fully understand the comprehensive sign plan when we submitted. We are happy to make revisions. I did want you guys to see this just to understand what our vision was there. We understand that we will need to make revisions, and we're comfortable with that. This is a rendering of the rear of the building. That car side fetch is what we're proposing. I have a slide further that will dive into the specifics of that, but essentially, it would be on the rear of the building. It's a canopy where the pet parents would be able to pull in and come in through that way. I also want to make note of there's 2 garage doors right now. We would convert those to large, like glass garage doors or windows. They would be how the vast majority of our customers are able to see what's going on in our building, to include transparency, but also because it's incredibly fun to watch dogs on a regular basis. So, give some renderings of the inside again, just to give you guys an idea of what our general aesthetics are and what sort of dog business we are. We're not in typical industrial space. Again, for the interiors. You can go ahead and move forward again. So key concepts for the low friction customer experience: incredibly easy scheduling, noise reduction from building materials, but also from a simplification of our pricing structure and our service models. We are grooming only. We will not have boarding, daycare, training, et cetera. We are just a grooming company. And we are only a dog grooming company, so no cats, unfortunately. Car-side fetch, which is a huge portion of what we're asking for in this conditional use portion, is not open to the general public. It will require enrollment, which would include like a conduct agreement ensuring the safety of anybody involved in that. It's also, there's an investment required in the form of a harness. So any dog who is participating in this program would be clipped into a harness that clips into the car. And if you've ever done rock climbing or zip lining, that redundancy that exists in a clip-in, clip-out process would be replicated here. So our staff would come out, clip into the dog's harness before it was ever clipped out of the car. Likewise, when they go back the other way, we would clip them into the car before we ever clip out of them. So significantly reduces the risk of elopement. And then another important part on the car-side fetch, is just that no transactions occur in that. We're not coming out and taking payment. They're not waiting on us to take payment. A card on file is required to be able to participate in this. And we also have the ability through the software that we utilize to send invoices before pickup or after pickup if required. We also just plan to be exceptional employers. It's really important to us to have an excellent team culture focused on safety and training. We've already begun the process to be a fear-free trained team and a certified facility. CPR training will be required, et cetera. So health and safety for our people and the dogs in our care is a huge focus for us. And then extensive operational improvements. We intend to be a multi-unit business here in St. Louis. We are incredibly excited about the opportunity to come to Brentwood first. This would be our flagship store, would be our first unit, which we're very excited about. We also love the location is very near the APA. One of the things that we want to do for each of our units is partner with the most geographically sensed rescue and be able to partner with them, offer grooming for rescues to help them get adopted faster, et cetera. Other just notes, annual unit economics that we intend, we expect and forecast an annual unit revenue of $1.5 to $2 million, gross profit of around $700,000 to $950,000. We will accomplish that through an average daily customer of 80. Our operating hours approximately would be Monday through Friday, 8 to 7, shorter days on Saturday, 8 to 3, closed on Sundays. We expect an average daily vehicle of 105. That does include the drop-off and pickup, so 105 total for the day. We have quite a few multi-dog families, so. And then an average transaction value of 95. This is just a quick representation of where we expect to expand over the next couple of years with, again, our first unit going into Brentwood, the next few units opening over the next 2 years. I think that's the bulk of it, so happy to answer any questions.
Great, thank you, Ms. Stewart.
Absolutely.
And I do think we'll go to staff report, Ms. Kelly.
You may remember, yes.
No, we have a fear-free. We just heard.
So, you may remember this property. We recently completed a comprehensive sign plan. The property is located at the northeast corner of Hanley Industrial Court and Strassner Drive and is zoned light industrial. And is pre-existing non-conforming. The light industrial district does include pet boarding facilities and personal services as a conditional use. So not specifically dog grooming on its own, but since they are similar, we did find that this should be conditional use. All of the signs under the comprehensive sign plan was able to utilize the sign band in their space. If they're taking up more than 2 spaces, they can provide the a logo subordinate to the total name. Only one of the spaces are allowed to use the total name. And these are the examples that were provided as part of that comprehensive sign plan. The applicant, as the applicant has indicated, they had initially requested to paint the entire their tenant space turquoise, and did not understand the comprehensive sign plan, so they should be making those revisions. I did have Lee look at the traffic flow around the building. He did not raise any concerns, but if you wish to hear from him, you can. The interior floor plan, they are taking up a large space. They are also looking to add soap bubbles on the north elevation, which we did say was not an allowed use for a sign. And on the back elevation, they are also indicating soap bubbles. Since this is specific to their use, any art, design, and graphics is considered signage under the law. So that is a discussion point. They have not provided the sign that would be on the canopy structure at this time, so we would need to review that to be consistent with the comprehensive sign plan. However, that was not really thought of at the time, so we'd have to look at that. But they are just taking this in space and not making any other changes to the exterior, the building, or the site. And therefore, we did not have a landscape review since they are just a small tenant within the larger building. But we did have Andy address those traffic impacts. Not Andy, I'm sorry, Lee.
I would figure we're not going to let Andy do traffic. We'll let you do that, but no, we're good. Thank you, Ms. Kelly. I will say I appreciate the fact that you realized that the comprehensive sign plan, which was primarily on the front of the building, was a topic of great conversation of this Planning and Zoning Commission not long ago. So I think that we would be more amenable if that was, however, since we did not consider the side or the rear, if a modification of the comprehensive sign plan were proposed that kept the frontage, as we've seen, that might be something that this commission would consider. Does the commission have any questions for the applicant on the remainder of the application, recognizing we might need a modified comprehensive or modified sign plan? That's going to come back our way, but anything else? Ms. Bilderbag.
I just have to say this. It looks so like 1950s retro. It's kind of like aqua bubble sadness, right? You guys did a great job with it, but you're absolutely right. We spent a ton of time on the front of that building, but I love your idea about the back and the canopy thing.
I don't particularly, seeing the photos, I'm not sure that the back is appealing and it has a great aesthetic, so perhaps something that incorporates that would be appropriate.
My only comment to that would be we're more than happy to change the front. We would love to, if at nothing else, improve the side and rear of the building. Just they are not currently, as mentioned earlier, right? We would love to make it prettier.
We look forward to a revised comprehensive sign plan coming our way. Any other questions for the applicant on this? Mr. Foreman.
A bit on the traffic flow and the split on your work. So the people coming through under the canopy, that's a subscription service. The other is the main door you're bringing people in and out of on the side or on the front?
The front. So we'll have a lobby on the front of the building. We do actually, and we believe that the bulk of our customers, once they're customers, will be using that. It's not an additional fee, so it's not truly subscription service. It's just like a one-time harness purchase, essentially. We want people to use it. We want to encourage use of it. We think that'll be the most convenient usage. But otherwise, yes, the front lobby will be on the front of the building.
Is my only comment as a past user of this space, looking at our traffic consultant over there, is that since Avis has gone in, that front parking lot has ebbs and flows that get a little weird, but I think your main circuit around the back is a perfect fit for that because nothing happens back there.
Wonderful.
So. I love it. It sounds like a good solution. Any other questions from the commission? Any member of the public wishing to address the commission on this petition? Do I have a motion? And then that's the question, are we going to do it without, do we need a revision, or without the sign plan, I guess is the question, because we have a site plan that doesn't, and the CUP without a comprehensive sign plan. Ms. Bilderbeck.
Don't we have to see what they're going to do on the back and everything?
Yeah, if we want to
before
do that for the conference.
I think we need
Yeah.
to.
Okay. So I think then, but that probably won't require site plan subcommittee. So I think that, do we really want site plan? Go ahead, send us a motion. You guys are, please make a motion.
I can't be there, so I'm not going to make a comment this time.
I make a motion, we approve pending a, can we do that?
No, normally we would refer it to the site plan subcommittee.
So we'd have
we
to see
discuss
that
it.
before, okay, so.
Or we could table it. We could table it to the next meeting, which is going to be the same time frame for approval, and that would give the applicant plenty of time to revise this and make sure it meets the comprehensive sign plan. I think that we could do that. So any objection, I will ask the applicant on this as well. So it's basically, we would take action on this at our next meeting, which is July 9th, so that would allow time for that revised comprehensive sign plan as part of the conditional use permit, rather than having to have 2 meetings. You're welcome to do that, because we can't take official action at site plan subcommittee. Please. Yeah.
Hi, Jennifer Elin, 215 Oakwood, Webster Groves, Missouri.
Thanks.
Really, really proud to have our first location here in Brentwood. I drive by all the locations that have been up for debate tonight every single day. I don't want to throw anyone under the bus, but I just do want to express that we asked for the comprehensive sign plan repeatedly, both to the city of Brentwood as well as from our landlord. And we literally just received, we've been under lease or under LOI now for a couple of months, and literally just received the comprehensive sign plan last Friday. So we've had the comprehensive sign plan for 6 days. And it was just not enough time for us to turn that around.
Understood, yep.
So the idea of being delayed another month, I feel, is somewhat punitive, considering the amount of effort we put into trying to get the information that you want us to subscribe to, and we're happy to.
I guess the question is there a conditional use permit that can be approved with no modifications to the exterior of the facility? And is that a motion that we could put forward? A approval of the conditional use permit without any modifications to the exterior comprehensive sign plan. Yeah. Right, I mean, there's 2 pieces, right? A comprehensive sign plan doesn't have to be provided if they're complying with existing signage or the existing comprehensive sign plan. So all we would approve then is a conditional use permit, so they can operate. They can put any signage up that complies with the existing comp sign plan, and if they wanted to make the modifications proposed, then they would have to come back.
Like
for
to
another
that
comp
or
plan.
to the back of the building.
Right. That's it. And so you wouldn't be able to make any changes to the back of the building or put signage up.
Mhm.
The signage is the key piece, not any changes, because we'd be approving those under the CUP. But that would be the piece that couldn't happen until you proposed a new comprehensive sign plan.
Yeah, and we're not planning to be in business immediately. Obviously, we plan to make some substantial improvements to both the interior and the exterior in terms of just cleaning up the exterior. So we're not looking to operate. I think we're looking to just have approval so that we can begin construction, which wouldn't necessarily be on signage at any point before now and July 9th. Is there a problem with us beginning?
Look over to Ms. Kelly. Ms. Carr, is there a motion that would complete that? I think that mine would be that, again, the CUP is approved, but not the comprehensive sign plan. I'm not sure we can split those. Can we just leave her hot?
I know. Yes. The recommended conditions of approval within the CUP do specify that the building elevation shall be revised to eliminate the painting of the brick, and the existing white areas shall remain a similar or neutral color to be consistent with the entire building, that the sign plan no painting which deemed part of the sign phase shall occur, and no sign shall be installed unless consistent with the comprehensive sign plan or is modified. The area adjacent to the north side of the building shall be painted adjacent to the area to hold vehicle traffic away. That was a recommendation from Mr. Cannon. They can submit for building permits, and then all other things would have to comply with with building codes and zoning codes. Yeah.
What was the painting? Can you talk about what Lee was
The
advising?
building elevations shall be revised to eliminate the painting of the brick, and the existing white areas of the building shall remain a similar or neutral color, consistent with the entire building, on the
Okay.
north and south,
No,
east elevations.
I
We're
think it
talking
was
about
D.
Canon.
Sorry, you could go back to where that was. I think it was D. I've got it here. I caught with condition.
Then number 4 was there should be a stripe added along the north elevation of the building to
hold
hold
traffic-
traffic
vehicle traffic
away from the building.
A stripe.
A stripe.
Okay,
Yeah,
okay.
safety, for safety.
All right, great, thanks.
Okay.
We can clarify that when, in the ordinance.
So I think that is the path, or Elaine, I think that is a path forward if the commission wishes to make a motion on that, where it would basically be the cup and the beginning for building, but no modifications with paint or signage. Ms. Bilderback?
So moved, what he said. I did, and I
That's
said
moved.
what, and then I pointed at the chairman, I said exactly like he said.
All right, I think we
Yeah.
have a second from probably Mr. Ritter. I'm going to say in that case, roll call vote. We have a motion, a second, and I'm going to go back. Give me a second here, since I'm having to do this myself, and I'm not great at it. Mr. Favazza?
Yes.
Mr. Ritter?
Yes.
Mr. Foreman?
Yes.
Ms. Sharing?
Yes.
Ms. Bilderback?
Yes.
Mr. Moore?
Yes.
Mr. Carlin?
Yes.
And Mr. Hunt?
Yes.
Unanimous. All right. So that will, still it's another step, that will go forward. This is a recommendation to the Board of Aldermen, which you told me before, and I forget the date again. The next Board of Aldermen meeting is July
Is July 21st, I believe.
21st.
Yes.
Is that right? Doesn't seem right.
The board is on their summer schedule, so
Oh,
they only
they are.
They only meet on the second meeting of the month.
Gotcha. So that will go forward to planning, or excuse me, to the Board of Aldermen for the final approval then.
Yeah. Yeah, so it would be July 21st.
July 21st. All right. Thank you very much. All right, next up, we have E, case 25006. This is amendment to the conditional use permit for large and site development plan for a two-story elevator addition to the building at 9445 Litzinger Road. Is the applicant or their representative here this evening? If you could state your name and address for the record, please.
Paula Kilcoyne. I'm the director for Large St. Louis, 9445 Litzinger Road.
Good to see you again, and tell us a little bit about what we're talking about tonight.
So we, when we were before you in the past, we were given approval to use part of the administrative building for overnight respite, light use, sort of 2 to 4 people a month, maybe that would stay overnight in the rooms that are on the second floor. The types of families that we support are telling us that their individuals could not access those rooms on the second floor without an elevator. And currently, the building itself is accessible only to individual floors. So the main floor is accessible from the front. The lower level is accessible from the west side patio, and you can't get from floor to floor without going outside and all the way around the building. So it's very limiting for people who might be in the program space in the basement and they want to go say hello to a friend that's upstairs. They have to go all the way around. So we want to, true to our vision, have easy access around. So we are proposing to build an elevator where currently there's a large area. It's like a grassy incline and then a pad that has 4 air conditioner units on it, and then open space that would never be developed for parking. It's not in the plan for anything other than that green space on the slanted hill. I don't know did we give, okay, so there it is. So right tucked into that corner that you can't quite see from the picture, but where the large gray unit is, it would be tucked into the corner. It would be a brick structure that would go up to the roof line, the flat roof line. And I do have the builder here if there's more technical questions, but.
There may be. We'll go to staff report first, though, so thank you very much. Ms. Kelly.
Yes, so this, as you remember, this received approval for the text amendment and then approval for the lot consolidation, site development plan, and CUP for the group home, to add the group home to the daycare facility for adult daycare uses. At that time, we did look at the overall parking and the landscaping, so I did not have that, provide that review at this time, as they are just looking to install an elevator that is over existing site coverage, and it did not impact any of the parking spaces. So therefore, this would just be an amendment to that original CUP that was approved in 2024 to allow for the modification to the building for the elevator. They have shown that they will have it in a brick that will match the existing structure. It does rise a little bit above the existing structure, but elevator. So it's a very minor change to the site at this time. So all of the other conditions within the site plan would remain the same, and this is just amending that to allow for the elevator. So, yeah, to orient yourself. So this is if you're in the parking lot, and this is that door from, and the house would be to the east. This is on the east elevation of the building.
Northeast corner. Put in
Yeah,
that, like,
northeast
gap.
corner.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm tracking now. Gotcha. Okay.
So this would be the view from the rear of the property, and this would be the view from McKnight Road. Yeah.
I do think as we talk about this a lot, that elevations, like you're showing, we never experience buildings that way. The photographs you have on the last page, if you go to those, not that one, last page of the staff report, or the last page of the, I'm sorry, Progress 5/27/25. Essentially, if you look at the photographs, I don't think we're ever going to see this.
Right. Yeah, I mean, that's it, from a ground elevation. I mean, the question is going to be from any neighbors, but they're one of the neighbors, so I'm less concerned about. Which one are you talking about?
Those two photos right there,
Oh.
we would really struggle to see any elevator shaft pop up. It's not going to be a significant,
No, you're going to see the roof. That's about it.
that's it.
Understood. Ms. Bilderbeck.
I love it. And I think it's so much safer than to have people running around back and forth in the parking lot. I mean, oh my goodness. Like, and not even, and we talked, and I won't belabor the subject, but we talked a lot about the importance of the mission as well. And you guys have done a great job of being compatible, I think, with the neighborhood. And I think it's a great addition. And the only question I had is, what happens to the HVAC units?
They are shown,
Move out to the face of the new wall
yeah.
Yep.
on the site plan.
Okay.
So they would be, here. Then they.
Yeah.
Move out to,
Yeah.
within that area.
Gotcha.
Still screened
That
from the
area
street.
was, part of the original CUP was that area was to be a screen to hide some of the trash receptacles and.
Great. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
All right. Other questions from the commission? Mr. Foreman.
I just have to ask, you're investing all this money. I love the idea, support the mission. It just feels like a really small elevator when you're spending this much money. Is it really just, are you limited by budget? It just feels like that the elevator shaft is just small. What's your clear cab dimension?
It's a Lula. Typically, we have, one individual supported by another individual that would go up or down and at a time. So, and we're light use. We're not like the Children's Home Society where they had, 24 kiddos living there at any given time. we're just so much lower use that I think it will be fine.
It
But-
just probably, and I think the code, just because I do elevators every day, it feels like you would struggle to get one of the big powered wheelchairs and an aide into this elevator.
Lamula.
And then accessing it through the stairwell, just since I do hospitals, this kind of gives me the willies. But if this is code compliant within a residential building use group, great, go for it. But
You'd be welcome to come over and give us your advice. I'm always up for that.
Do we have, any members of the public wishing to address the commission on this? About the elevator? I think we have a petition in front of us, so I guess unless we're gonna, and you looking to.
oh
have
no, this is I have vague code compliance about door pulls in the existing stairwell and ADA compliance that aren't pertinent to this conversation.
We'll be good then. Is there a motion from the committee?
I move to recommend the approval of the amendment.
We have a motion by Mr. Favazza. Is there a second? Second by Mr. Ritter and Ms. Sharing all at once. All right, roll call vote. We're going to go backwards this time. Mr. Hunt.
Yes.
Mr. Carlin.
Yes.
Mr. Moore.
Yes.
Ms. Bilderback.
Yes.
Ms. Sharing. Mr. Foreman.
Yes.
Mr. Ritter.
Yes.
Mr. Favazza.
Yes.
Unanimous. Thank you very much.
Thank
Look
you very
forward to
much.
it. Yes, I have a lot of elevators in my day job too. Good luck with that. All right, we have one last item of business. It's been a heck of a meeting, which is the nomination and election of officers under section 400.240. We were supposed to actually nominate them last meeting, but we didn't have a quorum, so we didn't, and we are supposed to vote this month. We have 3 officers. We have the chair, vice chair, and the secretary. How do we normally do this? We go in which order? Is it chair? I don't know. Do we have any nominations for chair? How about that? We'll start that. I'll open up nominations.
Can
Ms. Bilderback.
I nominate Mr. Nelson? I was going to say you're fired for the long meeting. No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah,
It's not your
exactly.
fault.
I will pass along the gavel. I'm not sure I was responsible for the long meeting. All right, I accept. Thank you very much. Are there any other nominations? All right, I'm not sure we need to vote, but we do. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Abstentions? I will abstain. Nays? I appreciate that. Do we have a nomination for the vice chair? I will nominate Mr. Favazza, who has covered for me more than he probably expected to, and I appreciate it greatly. Are there other nominees? All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions?
Abstain.
The secretary, Mr. Moran is not here. I have it on good authority that Mr. Moran would be willing to serve as secretary again, so I will nominate him. But he has also said that he will be very happy to pass his powers if anyone else is interested. So I will nominate Mr. Moran, but I think he would be fine if someone else wished to step into that role. Are there any other nominations?
I think there's like a decade minimum requirement for service in each one of these positions, and none of you have met that yet. So.
I'm close. I'm close. All right, so we have a nomination for Mr. Moran. Can we make him official? All those in favor of Mr. Moran being secretary, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? I will let Paul know. I'm not sure he'll understand me, that weird language he speaks, but I will tell him. Any other business for the good? We have the planner's planning report. I'm seriously going to get T-shirts made that just say Mike, please.
I don't remember off the top of my head. I think we have received an application for the next meeting, so we will have these items, the 3 items come back for the July meeting, as well as any additional that have come in. So please let us know as soon as possible.
Remember, we have June 25th for site plan subcommittee. Please send a reminder, because I always forget what time it is. I think it's a little earlier, 6, and it's over in the conference room. So please do plan on attending.
Yeah, that's right, I did
Let us know,
volunteer to-
yeah.
Let us know if you can.
Who's attending. Yeah.
Sherry did.
I can't.
Everyone else. Any other items for the good of the cause?
Okay.
All right. If not, do I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Thank you. We are adjourned.